Hello there, everyone. Welcome to Nightmare Narratives. I am your storyteller, and I'm here to guide you tonight. I know many of you use these videos to drift off to sleep, so before we begin, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. I'm always curious. Where are you watching from and what time is it in your part of the world? Now find your cozy spot and relax. My name is Isabella Rivera. I'm 27 years old and a park ranger at El Yunque National Forest in Puerto Rico. I've been here for 8 months now, and some days it almost feels like home. This morning, the rainforest looks like something from a dream. Everywhere I look, there's green, bright, alive, and dripping with morning dew. Ferns spread across the ground like a soft carpet, and through the mist, I can hear birds calling to each other. It's beautiful here, peaceful. I stop to take a breath, resting my hand against the rough bark of a tree. The air feels good in my lungs. Clean. For the first time in a long while, I feel hopeful, like maybe the forest is healing something broken inside me. The sounds here never stop. Day and night, it's like the whole forest is singing. Tree frogs chirp from hidden spots, colorful parrots screech as they fly overhead, and the gentle rain, it's always raining a little, makes a soft pattering sound on the big leaves. Altogether, it's like nature's lullaby. I've been sent to do a week-long biodiversity survey in a remote part of the forest. It's routine work, counting plants and animals, taking photos, making notes. Simple stuff. But I don't mind being alone out here. Sometimes it's easier than being around people. The forest feels alive today, but something's not right. I can feel it in my gut. I've been walking for about 3 hours when I find it. A goat, dead. I kneel down to take a closer look, and my stomach tightens. The animal is completely drained of blood, but the body is perfectly intact. There are just 2 small puncture wounds on its neck, like oversized snake bites. I've never seen anything like this before. I take out my camera to document it, but something feels off. Looking up, I realize I can't tell what time it is. The forest canopy is so thick here that barely any sunlight breaks through. It's like permanent twilight, making everything look strange and unfamiliar. After taking photos of the goat, I check my radio. Nothing but static. The communication towers went down during the last hurricane, and they still haven't been fixed. I'm completely cut off out here. I continue walking, trying to shake off the uneasy feeling. Colorful birds and butterflies go about their business like nothing's wrong. Whatever killed that goat doesn't seem to bother them. That's odd. Usually, when there's a predator around, all wildlife gets nervous. Suddenly, I feel cold, really cold. My breath comes out as steam, which makes no sense. This is a tropical rainforest. It's never cold enough to see your breath, but I'm shivering now. The temperature has dropped at least 20 degrees in just minutes. The path ahead looks different from what I remember. Recent rains have caused mudslides, changing the landscape. I need to be careful. One wrong step on this slippery ground could mean a nasty fall. As I push forward, the air gets so thick it's hard to breathe. The humidity wraps around me like a wet blanket. And there's something else, a strange feeling, like electricity. The hairs on my arms stand up, and I feel a tingling on the back of my neck. Something's watching me, I'm sure of it. I touch the small revolver at my hip, making sure it's there. I tell myself I'm being silly. It's just the forest playing tricks on my mind, but deep down I know better. Something's out there, and whatever it isn't natural. I wasn't always a park ranger. 8 months ago, my life was completely different. I was a paramedic, rushing to help people on their worst days. I loved that job, even though it was hard. Saving lives made all the tough parts worth it. Until that rainy Tuesday night. We got a call about a little girl having a severe asthma attack. Her name was Maria Santos, just 6 years old with big brown eyes and 2 braids tied with yellow ribbons. When we arrived, she could barely breathe. Her lips were turning blue. "It's going to be okay," I told her, holding her small hand. I'm going to take care of you." We loaded her into the ambulance and started toward the hospital. I was in the back with Maria, giving her oxygen and medicine to help her breathe. She was so scared. I remember telling her about the coqui frogs my grandmother used to talk about. Tiny frogs that sing at night. The story seemed to calm her. Then everything changed in a split second. A pickup truck ran a red light. The driver was drunk. He hit us right on the side, sending our ambulance spinning across the road. The crash was loud, metal tearing, glass breaking. When it stopped, I was on the floor, and Maria was still strapped to the gurney, but the oxygen tank had been knocked away. The driver was knocked out. The radio was smashed. I tried to help Maria with what supplies weren't broken, but she needed more than I could give her with our damaged equipment. "Help is coming," I kept saying, even as her breathing got worse. "Just hold on." It took 40 minutes for another ambulance to find us. By then, Maria was gone. She died while I held her hand, promising everything would be fine. I walked away from that crash with just a few cuts and bruises. Maria didn't walk away at all. After that, I couldn't go back to being a paramedic. Every time I heard a siren, I saw Maria's face. Every time I put on my uniform, I felt her small hand in mine. So I quit and applied to be a park ranger instead. No life or death decisions. No children depending on me to save them. At least that's what I thought. People who meet me don't see much. I'm small, 5'3", with long black hair I keep in a braid while working. My brown eyes don't give away much, but behind my professional smile, the sadness is always there. I wear Maria's hospital bracelet on my wrist. Sometimes I touch it without realizing, especially when things get tough. It's my reminder of what happens when I fail. Being a ranger isn't so different from being a paramedic in some ways. I still have my medical training. I'm certified as a wilderness first responder. I know the plants and animals of the rainforest better than most. I studied tropical ecology in college. But there's one thing that hasn't changed. I can't ignore someone who needs help, animal or human. If something's hurt or in trouble, I have to check it out. It's like a pull I can't fight, even when my brain tells me to walk away. I carry my medical kit everywhere. It's smaller than what I had as a paramedic, but it has the essentials. I've also got my digital camera for taking photos for research, a machete for clearing trails, and a .38 special revolver. The gun was my father's idea. "The forest isn't always friendly," he said. I never thought I'd need it. Growing up, my grandmother filled my head with stories about creatures from Puerto Rican folklore. The coqui that could turn invisible, the chupacabra that drank blood from farm animals. As a child, those stories kept me awake at night. As an adult with scientific training, I pushed them aside as just tales to scare kids. I believed science could explain everything, that my medical knowledge and logical mind would protect me from falling for superstitions. I was wrong. Looking at that bloodless goat, something my grandmother once said comes back to me. Not all legends are made up, Isa. Some are warnings dressed as stories. As I continue my hike deeper into the forest, those words echo in my head. The sunlight fades even more and shadows grow longer around me. The beautiful rainforest suddenly feels like a trap, and I'm walking right into it. I'm deep in the forest now. The path is barely visible, and every step takes me further from anything familiar. I've been taking photos of unusual plant species. When something strange happens, the insects stop chirping all at once. If you've ever been in a rainforest, you know that's not normal. The insect sounds are constant. Crickets, cicadas, beetles. They never stop day or night. But now there's nothing. The silence is so sudden and complete that my ears hurt. Like when you're on an airplane and the pressure changes. I freeze, listening hard. Nothing. Not even a single cricket. Just the sound of my own breathing and heartbeat. "Hello?" I call out. My voice sounds wrong in the silence, like it doesn't belong here. I pull out my camera to document this strange moment, but when I press the button, it shows an error message. I try again. This time it takes a photo, but when I check, the screen shows nothing but empty forest. I'm sure I was pointing it at a rare blue fern. I try the GPS next. It's showing coordinates that can't be right. According to this, I'm somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. All my digital equipment is going haywire at once. I turn everything off and back on again. Nothing helps. I decide to keep moving. Maybe it's just some weird electromagnetic thing from the storm last week. That's what the logical part of my brain says anyway. About a mile further, I come across a small farm at the edge of the forest. The sight stops me cold. There are dead animals everywhere. Chickens, goats, 2 cows, all laid out on the ground. 12 of them total. Every single one has the same marks I saw on the goat earlier, twin puncture wounds and bodies completely drained of blood. But no other injuries, no signs of a struggle, and strangest of all, no tracks or prints around the bodies. Whatever did this didn't leave any traces. I gag as a terrible smell hits me, like plastic burning mixed with the metallic scent of blood. It's so strong my eyes water and my throat burns. I pull my shirt over my nose, but it doesn't help much. I reach for my radio, forgetting for a moment it doesn't work. When I turn it on, there's nothing but static, but then a high-pitched whine cuts through the noise. It's so sharp and painful, I drop the radio, clutching my head. It feels like someone is driving a nail right between my eyes. The dead animals aren't just scattered randomly. Looking more carefully, I can see they're arranged in a circle, with their heads pointing inward. This wasn't done by some animal acting on instinct. This was planned, deliberate. That's when I hear it. Ayúdame. Por favor. Help me. Please. A child's voice, speaking Spanish. I spin around looking for the source. Hello? Who's there? Ayúdame, Isabella. The voice is coming from deeper in the forest. It's Maria's voice. I'd recognize it anywhere, but that's impossible. Maria is dead. I watched her die. Who's there? I call again, my hand moving to the revolver at my hip. This isn't funny. The voice calls again, this time from a completely different direction. It's like it's moving around me, circling. I tell myself it's just my mind playing tricks. Stress and lack of sleep can cause hallucinations. I know this from my medical training. But it sounds so real. As I'm trying to make sense of the voice, I notice something else wrong with the forest. The plants around me are wilting. Not just a few leaves, but entire sections of ferns and flowers. They're curling up and turning brown right before my eyes, like something is sucking the life out of them. The dead zone is spreading outward in a circle, with me at the center. I check my watch. It says 2:15 p.m. But that can't be right. It was around noon when I found the goat, and I've only been walking for about 2 hours. It should be early afternoon, but the forest is dark, like evening is already falling. The shadows are too long, the darkness too deep. My head spins as I try to make sense of it all. I feel weak suddenly, my legs shaky beneath me. My skin looks pale and my hands are trembling. It's like I'm coming down with something, but it hit me all at once. The symptoms remind me of severe anemia, the kind you see in patients who've lost a lot of blood. But I'm not bleeding. There's not a scratch on me, yet I feel drained. Tired in a way that goes beyond physical exhaustion. I lean against a tree, trying to steady myself. The forest that seemed so beautiful this morning now feels threatening. The very air seems to press in on me, thick and malevolent. It's just in your head, I whisper to myself. Focus on the facts. But the facts are becoming harder to trust with each passing minute. The strange cold returns, and my breath fogs in front of my face. My medical kit feels heavy on my shoulder. My machete, once a simple tool, now feels like my only protection against whatever is out there. Because something is out there. I can feel it watching me, studying me, and somehow, impossibly, it knows my name. It knows about Maria. I push myself away from the tree, determined to find my way back to the ranger station. Whatever is happening here, I need to report it and get help. I turn to head back the way I came, but something catches my eye. A movement in the trees to my right. I look directly at it. Nothing's there. But when I turn my head slightly, I see it from the corner of my eye, a shape, like a shadow that doesn't match anything around it. The light seems to bend around it, making it hard to focus on. I raise my camera without thinking and snap a photo. When I check the screen, my blood runs cold. There it is, a creature I can't see with my naked eyes, but the camera captures it perfectly. A grey-green figure about 4 feet tall, with a body too thin to be human. Its skin is almost see-through, with dark lines running underneath like veins. Its eyes are huge and black, taking up most of its face. It's looking right at the camera, right at me. I feel its gaze like a physical weight. It's not just watching me, it's studying me, like a scientist might study a lab rat. There's intelligence in those eyes, cold, calculating. I back away slowly, not wanting to make any sudden movements. The shape shifts in my peripheral vision, following me. "What do you want?" I ask, my voice barely above a whisper. No answer, but I swear I feel something brush against my mind, like fingers leafing through pages of a book. But the book is my thoughts, my memories. I raise my revolver with a shaking hand. "Stay back!" The creature moves suddenly, so fast. I can barely track it. It's circling me, testing my reactions. I fire a shot in its direction. The bullet passes right through where it should be, hitting a tree behind it. It's like the creature is only partly here, existing in some space between our world and somewhere else. Guns won't work. I need to think of something else. The creature stops moving. Through the trees, I watch in horror as it approaches a small bird on a low branch. The bird doesn't fly away, doesn't even move. It's frozen in place. The creature touches it with long, thin fingers, and the bird simply deflates, like all. The life is being sucked out of it. The creature turns to me again, and now I can see its face better through the camera screen, those huge black eyes fixed on me. In my mind, clear as day, I see Maria in the ambulance again, gasping for breath. The image is so real, I can smell the antiseptic and hear the monitors beeping, but it's not my memory playing on its own. The creature is putting it there, forcing me to relive it. My legs feel too heavy to move. Each step is harder than the last, like I'm walking through deep mud. It's draining me somehow, pulling my energy away without even touching me. I need to get away. Up. I need to go up. Ahead of me is a massive cecropia tree, its trunk straight and branches spreading wide above. In my ranger training, we learned climbing techniques for collecting samples from tall trees. With the last of my strength, I strap my gear tightly to my back and start climbing. The creature follows, but it seems hesitant. Maybe it's not good at climbing. Maybe it prefers to keep its feet on the ground. I climb higher, my arms burning. With the effort, 20 feet up, 30, I can feel my strength fading fast. Whatever this thing is doing to me, it's working. I'm so tired I can barely hold on. As I reach for the next branch, a thought hits me. The creature feeds on blood. That's what happened to all those animals. It's a vampire of sorts. In my medical kit, I have epinephrine, adrenaline, for allergic reactions. What if I inject myself with it? It would make my heart race, change my blood chemistry, maybe make me toxic to the creature. I reach my medical kit with one hand, still clinging to the tree with the other. I find the EpiPen and stab it into my thigh, right through my pants. The effect is immediate. My heart pounds, my vision sharpens, and for a moment I feel stronger. But it's not enough. As I look down, the creature is climbing now, moving up the tree with unnatural speed. I can only see it clearly through my camera screen, which I hold in one shaking hand. I climb higher, but there are fewer branches now. I'm running out of tree. Suddenly, pain explodes in my neck, sharp, burning pain that makes me scream. The creature has reached me. I feel something pierce my skin, right over my carotid artery. Two sharp points like needles. My blood is being drained rapidly. I can feel myself weakening, my grip on the tree loosening. Black spots dance in my vision. This is it. This is how I die. No, not like this. With my remaining strength, I grab my camera and turn on the flash. I set it to continuous mode, the kind used for action shots, and aim it directly at where I feel the creature on my neck. The strobing light seems to disorient it. I feel the pressure on my neck release as the creature pulls back, its camouflage disrupted by the flashing light. For the first time, I can see it clearly with my own eyes. Its thin body, its huge black eyes now narrowed against the light. In that moment of clarity, something else happens. The memory of Maria that's been torturing me shifts. I see her face, but instead of blame in her eyes, I see understanding. It wasn't my fault. I did everything I could. The realization hits me with stunning force. I've been carrying this guilt for so long, and now, face to face with death, I finally see the truth. I couldn't have saved her. Some things are beyond our control. As this weight lifts from my mind, I feel the creature's mental hold on me weaken. I can move again. Below us, the recent rains have left the hillside unstable. With my machete, I reach out and cut the vines that are holding a section of mud and rocks in place. The ground gives way beneath the tree. A landslide begins, small. At first, then gathering speed and mass. The creature screeches, a sound so high-pitched it hurts my ears as the mud engulfs it, pulling it down the mountainside. But I'm going down too. The tree shakes, then starts to tilt as its roots tear free from the softened earth. I cling to the trunk as we fall together, creature, tree, and me, carried down the slope in a rush of mud and debris. Pain explodes through my body as we hit the ground. I feel bones break, feel the breath knocked from my lungs. The mud covers me, heavy and suffocating. This is the end, I think. But at least I'm taking this thing with me. With the last of my strength, I reach for the emergency beacon on my belt. It's designed to send GPS coordinates to the ranger station. I press the button, holding it down until I feel it vibrate, confirming the signal is sent. My vision darkens. At the edges, I'm so cold now. My hand finds Maria's bracelet on my wrist, and I hold it tight. "I'm sorry," I whisper, though I'm not sure who I'm talking to, Maria or the other rangers who will come looking for me, or even the creature itself. As consciousness slips away, I have one final terrible thought. I hear something moving in the mud nearby, a small, high-pitched sound like a baby animal crying. Not one creature, many, and I've just sent my colleagues straight to them. But that's a problem for tomorrow, for someone else. I've done what I can. As darkness takes me, I think I see Maria standing in the forest, smiling, holding out her hand. This time I'm the one who needs saving, and this time there's no one left to help. My name is Vincent Kellerman. I've been a park ranger at Adirondack State Park for 3 years now, after leaving behind a life I'd rather forget. This morning started like any other patrol day. The sun was just coming up, turning the sky pink and orange as I stepped out of my cabin. Mirror Lake was beautiful in the early light. Mist floated over the water like ghosts, making the tall pine trees and colorful autumn maples look like they were dancing in a dream. Their reflections rippled on the lake's surface as a gentle breeze moved through the valley. I stood there for a moment, just listening. Cardinals sang their morning songs while squirrels chattered at each other from the branches above. In the distance, I could hear loons calling across the water. The leaves rustled peacefully, making that soft whispering sound I've grown to love. For the first time in months, I felt something like peace. I took a deep breath of the crisp mountain air, filling my lungs with the smell of pine needles and damp earth. Maybe nature really could heal what the war had broken inside me. That's what I told myself when I took this job anyway. As I started, walking down the trail, something caught my eye. A raven, bigger than most I'd seen, perched on a dead branch. It cawed over and over like it was trying to tell me something. Its black eyes seemed to follow me as I moved along the path. I tried to shake the feeling, but something about that bird stuck with me. The afternoon sun filtered through the trees, creating patches of light on the forest floor. But something felt off. The shadows didn't seem to move right. They shifted in ways that didn't match the swaying branches. More than once, I spun around, sure I'd seen something move from the corner of my eye, but there was never anything there. I checked my radio, but got nothing but static. I was at least 15 miles from the nearest road, and dark clouds were gathering. Overhead, no backup would be coming for the next 2 days, not that I'd ever needed it before. A young deer stepped onto the path ahead, stopping just a few feet away. It didn't run when it saw me, just stared with those big brown eyes. It seemed so calm, so unafraid. I took it as a good sign. If there were any dangerous predators around, this deer wouldn't be so relaxed. I was wrong. The temperature dropped. Suddenly, I could see my breath clouding in front of my face, even though it had been warm just minutes before. A strange fog began creeping between the trees, hugging the ground like a living thing. I looked up, confused. The sky was clear directly above me. This fog wasn't natural. The trail ahead looked different somehow. Fallen logs created a maze-like path, and I could swear the trail markers weren't where they should be. Paths I'd walked 100 times seemed to change direction when I wasn't looking directly at them. The air felt thick and heavy in my lungs, almost hard to breathe. It had a metallic taste that made my stomach turn. It reminded me of the medical tents in Korea, the taste of blood that filled the air as I worked desperately to save boys too. Young to die. That's when I knew something was very wrong in my peaceful forest. I wasn't always this jumpy. Before I came to these woods, I was a medic in the Korean War. That's where the nightmares started. Even now, years later, I still wake up hearing the screams of dying soldiers. The worst is Private Danny Morrison. He was just a kid, maybe 19. He bled out right in my arms while I tried to save him. I can still feel his grip on my sleeve getting weaker. My hair started turning grey at the temples, even though I'm only 34. People say it's from stress. My hazel eyes are always moving, always checking what's around me. Can't help it. My hands have these little scars all over them from pulling out shrapnel from wounded men. Some marks don't fade with time. My wife left me last year. She tried, she really did. But she couldn't handle my bad dreams and the drinking that came after. I don't blame her. That's why I took this ranger job, to get away from people for a while. Turns out trees don't ask questions about your past. At least I'm not completely alone out here. Rex, my German shepherd, has been with me since Korea. He was a military dog there, and he's seen as much bad stuff as I have. Sometimes he wakes up whimpering from his own dog nightmares. Today, he's extra alert, his ears perked up at every little sound. I reached into my pocket and touched the metal dog tags I always carry. They were Morrison's, still stained with his blood. I know it's morbid, but touching them helps when I get anxious. A reminder of why I need to stay sharp. I've walked these mountains for 3 years now. I know every trail marker, every turn in the path, where the deer like to drink, where the bears usually den. But today, nothing feels right. It's like I'm in a forest I've never seen before, even though I know that's impossible. Some people might have turned back already, but not me. I need to know what's happening. Ever since Morrison died, I can't walk away when something feels wrong. I have to fix it, have to make sure everyone's safe. It's like I'm trying to make up for the ones I couldn't save. I checked my gear again. Standard stuff, radio, still not working. First aid kit, my .38 revolver. Usually, it's more than enough for any problem I might face in these woods. Rex whimpered and pulled at his leash, refusing to take the trail to the left. I frowned. He's never done that before. Rex isn't afraid of anything. He's charged bears before I could stop him, but something about that path had him scared. "It's okay, boy," I said, but I didn't believe my own words. I patted the revolver at my hip, trying to feel confident. Between my combat experience and medical training, I thought I was ready for anything these woods could throw at me. I was dead wrong. The first thing I noticed was a strange humming. It wasn't like anything I'd heard before, not a plane or a machine. It seemed to come from the ground itself, vibrating up through my boots. It made my teeth ache and my vision go a little blurry around the edges. Rex felt it too, whining and pawing at his ears. Then, in the middle of a bird's song, everything went quiet. Not normal forest quiet, but the kind of silence that makes your skin crawl. 1 second, the woods were alive with sounds, and the next, nothing. No birds, no insects, not even the wind. It was like someone had turned off the volume on the whole world. I rounded a bend in the trail and stopped dead in my tracks. There was a campsite ahead, or what was left of one. 2 tents were torn to shreds, like something had ripped its way out from inside. The sleeping bags were soaked in what could only be blood, dark and crusted, but there were no bodies, no sign of anyone being dragged away. People don't just vanish. "Hello?" I called out. My voice sounded wrong in the dead air. "Park Ranger! Anyone here?" Nothing. Then the smell hit me. It was like roadkill that had been sitting in the sun for days, mixed with something else, something sharp and electric, like the air after lightning strikes. I pulled my shirt over my nose, but it didn't help much. I checked my compass to get my bearings, but the needle just spun in circles, never stopping. My radio was still picking up nothing but static, and when I looked at my watch, my reliable watch that had never failed me, it had stopped at exactly 3:33 p.m. About half a mile from the campsite, I found more disturbing things. Expensive hiking gear scattered through the trees, boots, backpacks, cameras. All of it was covered in some strange black goo that stuck to my fingers when I touched it. It wasn't blood or mud or anything I recognized. "Hello?" I called again, louder this time. "Is anyone out there?" That's when I heard it, a voice calling from deeper in the woods. "Medic, help me, Doc." My blood ran cold. It was Morrison's voice. Morrison, who died in Korea 5 years ago. "Help me, I'm bleeding out, Doc." I knew it couldn't be real, but it sounded exactly like him. The voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Rex barked at the yati trees, spinning in circles. I tried to tell myself I was just tired, that the voice was just the wind playing tricks. Then I found the elk. It was a big bull, at least 700 pounds. But something had lifted it 20 feet up into a tree, wedging it in the branches. Every bone in its body looked broken, twisted in ways that weren't natural. The way it was arranged, with the legs pointing in specific directions, made it look almost planned. I'd been walking these trails for hours, but somehow I kept ending up in the same spots. Paths that should have led to the lake now curved back to the campsite. The mountain that should have been to the north was suddenly on my right, then my left, then behind me. Rex was getting worse. He kept barking at empty spaces between the trees, growling at things I couldn't see. His fur stood up along his spine, teeth bared at shadows. Rex was the bravest dog I'd ever known, but now he was terrified of something. And so was I. I was filling my water bottle at a small stream when I saw it for the first time. Just a glimpse between the trees. Something tall, impossibly tall. It had to be at least 12 feet high, with long arms that hung down past where its knees should be. It moved in a way that wasn't right, like its joints bent in the wrong directions. I froze, water spilling over my hand. By the time I blinked, it was gone, but I knew I hadn't imagined it. From that moment on, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. It wasn't like the normal awareness you get in the woods. This was different. Like eyes were on me from every direction, boring into my skin. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up and wouldn't go down. An hour later, I caught a better look. It was standing between two pines, about 50 yards away. Its skin was a sickly grey-white colour, stretched too tight over a massive frame. The head was too big for the body, and those arms, those awful long arms, reached almost to the ground. "What the hell are you?" I whispered. It answered, but not with its own voice. "Doc, I can't feel my legs. Help me, please." Morrison's voice again, perfect in every detail. The pain, the fear, the slight southern accent. It was coming from the creature, but its mouth didn't move. I turned and ran, pulling Rex with me. We crashed through underbrush, abandoning the trail. I had a map in my head of how to get back to the ranger station, but every path I took seemed to lead me deeper into the woods. Somehow, the thing was always ahead of me, blocking the way I needed to go. I pulled out my revolver, hands shaking. "Stay back!" I shouted, not sure if the thing could even understand me. It stepped into a clearing, fully visible now in the fading light. I fired all 6 rounds, aiming right for the center of its body. The bullets either passed right through it or did no damage at all. The creature didn't even flinch. Its behavior made no sense. Sometimes it would just stand there, watching me for what felt like hours. Other times it would move so fast I could barely see it, just a white blur between the trees. I never knew what it would do next, and that made it hard to think straight. As night fell, it let out a sound I'll never forget, a shriek so loud and high-pitched that it made my ears bleed. I fell to my knees, head pounding, temporarily deaf. The sound filled me with a terror so deep and primal that I nearly lost control of my bowels. Rex howled in pain beside me. I tried to escape, but the forest itself seemed to be working against me. Trees that had been standing straight suddenly fell across my path. Rocks shifted under my feet, making me stumble. It was like the whole woods were alive and helping this monster hunt me. The worst part came when it started putting images in my head. Suddenly, I was back in Korea, watching Morrison bleed out all over again. Then it was Wilson with his legs blown off, then Garcia with his guts spilling out, then Thompson screaming for his mother. Every patient I'd lost, every person I couldn't save, I was forced to watch them die again while this thing hunted me through the dark forest. I hadn't slept, I hadn't eaten. The night stretched on forever as I stumbled through the woods with this creature always just a few steps behind me, playing with me like a cat with a mouse. "What do you want?" I screamed into the darkness. The only answer was Morrison's voice, calling for help again and again. Somewhere around dawn, I had a moment of clarity. This thing was feeding on my fear, on my guilt. Every time I ran, every time I remembered the soldiers I couldn't save, it seemed to get stronger. The more afraid I felt, the closer it got. I had to try something else. I knew these mountains. Even with the trails all mixed up, I remembered there was a cliff overlooking the lake, with loose shale rocks that could give way easily. If I couldn't kill this thing with bullets, maybe I could use the environment against it. I started moving with purpose now, heading east where I thought the cliff would be. The creature followed, staying just far enough back that I could only catch glimpses of its pale form. "You want my fear?" I called out. "You want my guilt? Well, come and get it." I was running now, pushing through exhaustion. That's when I felt it, sharp pain tearing across my back as something raked over my skin. Its claws had caught me, cutting deep through my uniform and into the muscles beneath. I could feel hot blood soaking my shirt, running down my back. I stumbled but kept moving. The pain was blinding, but in a strange way, it helped clear my head. This was real. This was happening. And I needed to survive. 12 hours. It had been hunting me for 12 hours straight. My legs felt like rubber, my vision blurring from blood loss and exhaustion. Every breath burned in my lungs. But ahead, through the trees, I could see it, the cliff edge. I staggered the last few yards. then turned to face the creature. It towered over me, at least twice my height. In the early morning light, I could see its eyes red and glowing like embers. There was nowhere left to run. The cliff was at my back, a drop of at least 100 feet to the rocks and water below. The thing reached out one long, pale arm toward me, and Morrison's voice came again. "Why didn't you save me, Doc?" Something shifted inside me then. Maybe it was the blood loss. Maybe it was just finally facing my demons. But I suddenly understood. Morrison's death wasn't my fault. I'd done everything I could. Some people just couldn't be saved, no matter how hard you tried. "I'm sorry, Danny," I said aloud. "But it wasn't my fault. And you're not him." The creature hesitated, its arm frozen. In midair, the voice faltered. That's when Rex attacked. My brave, loyal dog launched himself at the creature's legs, teeth baring into that pale flesh. The monster let out that terrible shriek again and tried to shake him off. I had seconds to act. Near the cliff edge was an abandoned campsite, probably from the hikers, whose gear I'd found scattered through the forest. Among the items was a small generator with a gas can beside it. Moving on pure adrenaline, I grabbed the gas can and splashed the liquid between me and the creature. Rex was still hanging on, giving me the distraction I desperately needed. The monster's claws caught Rex, tearing into him. I heard my dog's yelp of pain, saw his body go flying through the air. "No!" I screamed, fumbling for the emergency flare. In my pocket, it was now or never. I struck the flare and threw it at the gasoline. The fuel caught immediately, creating a wall of flame between me and the creature. The fire roared up, and the monster retreated, screaming that inhuman shriek. The flames caught its pale skin, and it thrashed wildly, the fire spreading across its body. It backed away, still burning, into the deeper woods. The last I saw was those red eyes, glaring at me through the flames. I collapsed then, my strength finally giving out. The last thing I remember is crawling toward Rex's still form, blood pooling under me as darkness took over. They found me 3 days later, barely alive. The search party said I'd lost so much blood, they didn't know how I was still breathing. The claw marks on my back required over 100 stitches. They never found Rex's body. They said a bear must have taken it, but I know better. It's been months now, and I've transferred to a different park, but I still hear things. Hikers in the Adirondacks reporting strange sounds in the woods. A young man's voice calling for help, begging for a medic. Sometimes I wonder if I really destroyed that thing, or if it's still out there waiting. And sometimes, on cold nights when the wind sounds like screaming, I wonder if a part of it is still inside me, feeding on the guilt I can never fully shake. All I know for sure is that I'll never set foot in those woods again. My name is Margaret Stone, but everyone calls me Maggie. I've been a park ranger at Black Hills National Forest for almost 3 years now, though that wasn't always my plan. 6 months ago, I was an ER nurse in Rapid City, working long shifts and trying to save lives. I was good at my job until Emma Hartwell. Emma was just 8 years old, with blonde pigtails and a gap-toothed smile. She came in with what her parents thought was a bad flu, but I knew something was wrong the moment I saw her glassy eyes. Meningitis. We worked on her for 14 hours straight. I stayed by her side the whole time, holding her hand when the doctors weren't poking and prodding. "Don't let me die, Nurse Maggie," she whispered to me, her little fingers wrapped around mine. I promised her I wouldn't, but I couldn't keep that promise. When she flatlined, something in me broke. I can still hear the steady beep of the monitor, see her parents crumpling to the floor in the waiting room when I had to tell them. After that, I couldn't handle the ER anymore. Every child that came through those doors was Emma to me. My hands would shake, my breath would catch, and panic would take over. So I ran away. I applied for the most isolated ranger position I could find, Pine Ridge Station in the heart of the Black Hills. Out here, the only lives I'm responsible for are the ones people are smart enough not to put in my hands. At least, That's what I thought. I still wear the friendship bracelet Emma made me during those 14 hours. Colorful threads woven together by tiny fingers fighting to live. I keep it under my glove, touching it when the memories get too heavy. Like a reminder and a punishment all at once. Rex Hamilton at headquarters tried to warn me last week. Something strange going on up at Pine Ridge, he said. Hikers reporting weird stuff, probably just cabin fever or seeing things in the snow. I laughed it off. After what I'd seen in the ER, nothing in these peaceful woods could scare me. I was wrong. So very wrong. This morning started out perfect. Fresh snow had fallen overnight, covering everything in a clean white blanket. The pine trees looked like they were wearing fluffy coats, and the sunlight made the ice crystals sparkle like tiny diamonds. For the first time in months, I felt peaceful. I decided to check the eastern trails, just a routine walk to make sure no hikers were stuck after the snowfall. The air was cold but nice, and the sound of my boots crunching in the snow was somehow comforting. Out here, far from hospitals and beeping machines, I could almost forget about Emma. The forest was alive around me. Wind gently moved through, the pine needles making a soft whooshing sound. In the distance, I heard an elk calling out, its voice echoing across the valley. A pair of snowshoe hares hopped across my path, leaving tiny footprints in the fresh snow. Everything seemed so normal, so right. That's when I saw them. Footprints, human footprints, but all wrong. They were huge, much bigger than any man's foot I'd ever seen, and barefoot. Who walks barefoot in snow when it's below freezing? The toes looked strange, too. Too long, almost like fingers. I knelt down to take a closer look, and a chill ran through me that had nothing to do with the cold. I checked my watch. Only 2:30 in the afternoon, but the shadows stretched long and dark around me like it was almost sunset. The light seemed dimmer somehow, even though there wasn't a cloud in the sky. Strange, I muttered to myself, reaching for my radio to check in with headquarters. Pine Ridge to base, come in, I said. But all I got back was a quick weather warning about an unexpected blizzard before the radio went to static. I shook it and tried again, but nothing, just white noise. Great. Alone for the weekend with no radio. I told myself it was just the mountains blocking the signal. I stood up and noticed how quickly the temperature was dropping. My thermometer had read 20 degrees when I left the station, but now the little dial was hovering near zero and still dropping fast. As I watched, it sank to 15. The trees around me started to make loud cracking sounds as the cold made them contract. Looking around, I realized I couldn't recognize where I was. The snow was falling heavier now, covering landmarks I should know like the back of my hand. Trails I'd walked 100 times suddenly seemed unfamiliar. The air felt different too. Thin and sharp, each breath burned my lungs a little, and it was quiet. Too quiet. The elk had stopped calling. The wind had died down. It felt like the whole forest was holding its breath, waiting for something. I touched Emma's bracelet under my glove. Just a normal day, I whispered to myself. Just a normal patrol. But deep down, I knew nothing about this day was normal. And it was about to get much, much worse. The cold hit me like a wall. I've been in freezing temperatures before, but this was different. My cheeks stung after just seconds of exposure, and my fingers went numb inside my gloves. It wasn't natural. I'd never felt cold this intense. I decided to head back to the station, but as I turned around, I realized I couldn't hear anything. Not a bird, not a squirrel, not even the wind. The forest had gone completely silent, like someone had hit a mute button on the whole world. Animals don't just stop making noise all at once, unless they're scared of something. That's when I smelled it. A horrible stench like rotten meat and worse things. The kind of smell that makes your stomach turn. It shouldn't have been possible in this cold. Things don't rot when it's below freezing. I followed the smell, though every instinct told me not to. About half a mile off the main trail, I found a small campsite. A blue tent was half buried in snow, and the smell was coming from inside. "Hello," I called out. "Park Ranger, is anyone there?" No answer. With shaking hands, I unzipped the tent flap. What I saw inside will haunt me forever. A family of 4, Mom, Dad, and 2 children, all frozen solid. Their faces were twisted in fear, mouths open in silent screams. But that wasn't the worst part. Parts of them were missing, like something had been eating them. But there were no claw marks, no signs of bears or wolves. The bites looked almost human. I stumbled backward, nearly throwing up. In all my years as a nurse, I'd never seen anything like this. That's when my radio crackled to life. Instead of Rex's voice from headquarters, I heard whispers in a language I didn't understand. Then, cutting through the whispers, the sound of children crying. I shut it off quickly, my heart pounding in my chest. Looking around the campsite, I noticed something leading away from the tent. A trail in the snow, not footprints, but a disgusting mixture of human waste and vomit, as if whatever had been here had gotten violently sick after feeding. I knew I should document the scene, call for help, follow procedure. But the radio wasn't working right, and something told me I needed to get back to my station as fast as possible. As I turned to leave, I heard a voice, a child's voice, carried on the wind. "Nurse Maggie, help me!" I froze. It was Emma's voice, exactly how she sounded that night in the hospital. "Emma," I whispered, even though I knew it was impossible. The voice came again, from a different direction. "Nurse Maggie, help me!" It was closer this time. I started running, no longer caring about finding my way back to the trail. I just needed to get away. I hadn't gone far when I stumbled over something hidden in the snow. I looked down and immediately wished I hadn't. Human. Bones, picked completely clean, stacked in neat little piles. The tooth marks on them were huge. No animal in these woods could make marks like that. The snow started falling harder, but strangely in some places it seemed to be floating upward, defying gravity. My compass went crazy, the needle spinning, in circles. My stomach growled loudly, even though I'd eaten a big lunch before heading out. The hunger came suddenly and intensely, making me feel dizzy and sick at the same time. Something was very wrong in these woods, and I had a terrible feeling that whatever had happened to that family was coming for me next. I ran until my lungs burned from the cold air. The snow was falling so thick now that I could barely see 10 feet ahead of me when I finally stopped. To catch my breath, leaning against a pine tree, I saw it. Through the curtain of snow, about 30 yards away, stood a figure, tall and skinny, too skinny. Its skin was a sickly gray-white color like old ice. I could see its ribs sticking out like it was starving. It moved weird, all jerky and wrong, like a puppet with tangled strings. My whole body tensed up. Every part of me screamed danger, run, hide. But I couldn't move. It felt like something heavy was pressing down on me, like the air itself had turned solid. The thing tilted its head and stepped closer. I could see its face now. Yellow eyes sunk deep in its skull. Black lips stretched way too wide, showing rows of teeth, human teeth, but too many of them. Its fingers ended in long, curved claws, maybe 6 inches long. They looked sharp enough to tear through, flesh with no effort at all. "Margaret Stone," it said, and my blood turned to ice. It wasn't speaking out loud. The voice was inside my head, but worse, it was Emma's voice. "Don't let me die, Nurse Maggie." The exact words, the exact way she said them that night. That broke my trance. I turned and ran, no longer caring about direction. I just needed to get away from that thing. But it was smart. Every time I tried to head toward what I thought was the direction of my station, I'd catch glimpses of it, herding me away, forcing me toward dead-end canyons and cliffs. I pulled out my gun, a 44 Magnum that I carried for bear protection. When the creature got close enough, I fired. The shot echoed through the trees. I hit it right in the chest, and it stumbled back. For a second, I thought I'd won. Then I watched in horror as the wound closed up, healing itself right before my eyes. The creature reached up, touching where one of its fingers had been partially shot off. It calmly broke the finger the rest of the way off, put it in its mouth, and crunched down on it like it was eating a carrot, all while staring at me with those sunken yellow eyes. The snow around me got worse, turning into a full blizzard. But strangely, around the creature, the air was perfectly clear. It was controlling the weather somehow, using the storm to blind me while it could see just fine. As I ran, my mind started playing tricks on me, or maybe the creature was making me see things. I kept seeing flashes of that night in the hospital. Emma's pale face, the monitors beeping, her parents crying. It was like being forced to relive my worst memory while running for my life. "Join us forever," Emma's voice whispered in my head. But it wasn't Emma, it was trying to get inside my mind. "You're not her," I gasped, stumbling through knee-deep snow. "You're not Emma." I'd been in these woods for almost 3 years. I knew every trail, every shelter, every landmark. But now everything was wrong. The creature was driving me deeper into the wilderness, away from safety. My ranger training kicked in. If I couldn't outrun it, I'd have to outsmart it. I still had my pack with emergency supplies. Among them were small explosive charges we used for controlled avalanches when the snow got too dangerous. A plan started forming in my mind. A desperate, probably suicidal plan, but the only one I had. There was a narrow canyon about a mile, ahead with unstable rock walls. If I could lure the creature there, I touched Emma's bracelet one more time and changed direction, heading straight for the canyon. I could feel those yellow eyes watching me, following me, thinking I was just running blindly. It didn't know I was leading it right into a trap. The canyon walls rose up around me, steep and covered in snow and loose rocks. Perfect for what I needed to do. My hands shook as I dug through my pack, pulling out the small explosive charges. These were meant for triggering controlled avalanches, not fighting monsters, but they were all I had. I'd been running for hours. The sun had set long ago, and the cold was getting worse. I couldn't feel my toes anymore, and my fingers were so numb I could barely handle the equipment. 18 hours in a blizzard was pushing the limits of what even an experienced ranger could survive. I placed one charge on the canyon wall where it looked weakest, then took out my radio. It was still picking up nothing but static and those weird whispers, but that might work to my advantage. I recorded a short message, my voice shaking. "This is Ranger Margaret Stone, requesting immediate assistance at Pine Ridge." Then I added, in a whisper, "Don't let me die, Nurse Maggie." It felt wrong using Emma's words like that, but I needed bait. I set the radio to play my message on loop, cranked up the volume, and placed it on a rock shelf about 20 feet away from where I'd put the explosive. Then I hid behind a large boulder, detonator in hand, and waited. The silence was complete except for the wind and my recorded voice echoing off the canyon walls. Minutes passed. Had I lost it? Had my plan failed? Then I heard it. That strange, jerky movement crunching through the snow. It was coming closer, drawn by my voice, by Emma's voice. I peeked out from behind the boulder. The creature stood in the perfect spot, right below the weakest part of the canyon wall, its head tilted as it listened to the radio. Its yellow eyes glowed in the darkness. This was my chance. I pressed the detonator button. Nothing happened. I pressed it again. Still nothing. The cold must have damaged it somehow. The creature's head snapped in my direction. It knew I was there now. It started moving toward me, those long claws extending. I fumbled with the detonator, trying to get it to work, but my fingers were too numb. The creature was getting closer, 10 feet away, 5 feet. "Stay back!" I shouted, pulling out my gun again, even though I knew it wouldn't help. It lunged at me, impossibly fast. I felt a searing pain across my stomach as its claws slashed through my jacket, my shirt, my skin. I looked down and saw blood, a lot of it, steaming in the cold air. I could see things that should never be seen outside a human body. With one hand pressing against my wound, I grabbed the detonator again. This was it. Do or die. As the creature leaned in close, its black lips stretching into that horrible smile, I thought of Emma, of how I couldn't save her, of how I'd run away from my failure instead of facing it. "I'm sorry, Emma," I whispered, but not to the monster, to the real Emma, to myself. And in that moment, I found a kind of peace. I wasn't running anymore. With all my remaining strength, I jammed the wires of the detonator together directly, bypassing the button entirely. The explosion was deafening. The canyon wall shuddered, then gave way. Thousands of tons of rock and ice came crashing down. I had just enough time to see the creature look up, its yellow eyes widening, before the avalanche hit us both. The pain was intense but brief. Then darkness, quiet, cold. I don't know how long I was buried. Minutes, hours. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The weight of the snow and rocks was crushing me. As consciousness started to slip away, I thought I heard Emma's voice again, but not the monster's fake version. The real Emma, like she was right beside me. "It's okay, Nurse Maggie. You can rest now." My last thought was that I hadn't run away this time. I'd stayed, I'd fought, and maybe, just maybe, I'd won. The search team didn't find me until spring, when the snow started to melt. Rex Hamilton led the rescue mission himself after I missed 3 scheduled check-ins. They said the avalanche had changed the whole landscape of that part of the forest, created a new formation that wasn't on any of their maps. I know this because I heard them talking. I shouldn't have been able to hear anything, being dead and all, but somehow I was still aware, still there in a way I can't explain. They dug my body out from under 6 feet of rock and ice. I was still clutching Emma's bracelet in my frozen hand. Rex cried when he found me. I never knew he cared that much. "Look at these marks," one of the rescue team said, pointing to my shoulder. "What kind of animal bite is that?" They were looking at the place where the creature had grabbed me just before the avalanche hit. The marks didn't match any known predator. As they carried my body out of the forest, I felt myself being pulled along, like I was tied to it somehow. I wanted to tell them to leave me there, to bury me again, because I knew something they didn't. The creature wasn't dead. Late at night, when the forest is quiet, you can hear strange howls coming from beneath the rockslide. Not animal sounds, something else. And sometimes, if you listen carefully, you can hear children crying underground. 3 hikers have gone, missing near that new rock formation in the months since they found me. The official report says they probably got lost in unexpected snowstorms. But I know better. The hunger of Pine Ridge is still there, buried but not destroyed. Waiting, growing, stronger. Sometimes I think I can feel it reaching out, trying to find me even beyond death. In those moments, I hold tight to the memory of Emma, the real Emma, and I find the strength to resist. Rangers have put up warning signs around that part of the forest now. They say it's because of unstable ground and avalanche risk. The truth is much worse. If you're ever hiking in the Black Hills and you hear a child's voice calling for help, or if the snow starts to fall upward, or if you find footprints that look almost human but not quite, run. Don't look back. Don't try to help. And whatever you do, don't make promises you can't keep. Some things are hungrier than others when you break them. My name is Margaret Stone. I was a nurse, then a park ranger, and now something else. This is my warning to you. The hunger of Pine Ridge is still out there, and it's always, always starving. My name is William Thompson, but everyone around these parts just calls me Billy. I've been a park ranger in the Ouachita National Forest for going on 15 years now. The swamps of Arkansas have been my home since I was knee-high to a grasshopper, and after coming back from Korea, I couldn't imagine living anywhere else. The bayou has a way of calming my nerves that nothing else can. Those giant cypress trees with their twisted trunks rising up from the dark water like ancient giants, all draped in that ghostly Spanish moss hanging down like old men's beards. Sometimes, when I'm out on my boat, gliding between those trees, it feels like I'm moving through a natural church. I know that sounds silly, but that's how it feels to me. This morning started like any other patrol. The sun wasn't fully up yet, and a light fog was dancing on the water's surface. The sounds of the swamp were all around me. Bullfrogs letting out their deep rumbling croaks, night herons calling to each other from hidden spots in the trees, and the gentle splash of water against those knobby cypress knees poking up through. The water, it's a kind of music that makes more sense to me than anything on the radio these days. I pushed my small patrol boat deeper into the wetlands, following channels I've known since I was a boy. After what I saw in Korea, this predictable rhythm of swamp life is the only thing that keeps me sane some days. Out here things make sense. Every creature has its place and purpose, not like war, not like what happened to my unit. But something felt off today. I can't explain it exactly, but when you've lived in these swamps as long as I have, you develop a sense for when things aren't right. It started when I noticed some trees with their bark stripped clean away. Not just a little bit like when deer rub their antlers, but massive patches torn off in strange patterns, higher up than any animal around here could reach. And the claw marks, deep gouges in the wood that made my stomach tighten. I'd been sent out to survey a remote sector of the forest, one of those routine checks we do every few months. This section was about as far from civilization as you can get in these parts. No roads, no cabins, nothing but wild swamp for miles in every direction. The canopy overhead was so thick that even in midday, it was like twilight down at water level. With the fog rolling in thicker now, it was hard to tell if it was morning or evening. My radio crackled with static when I tried to check in. Nothing unusual there. These lowlands create dead zones where signals can't get through. I was on my own for the next week, which never bothered me before. I prefer being alone most days anyway. A family of alligators was sunning themselves on a muddy bank as I passed by, barely giving me a second glance. Turtles were lined up on fallen logs, and a couple of water snakes slipped silently across the surface. Everything looked normal, which should have made me feel better, but that nagging feeling wouldn't go away. Later that afternoon, the weather shifted. A cold front moved in, which was strange for this time of year. The temperature dropped, so fast I could see my breath, and by evening, there was a thin layer of ice forming along the edges of the water. Ice in these subtropical swamps was like seeing snow in the desert. It just doesn't happen. The flooding from last month's heavy rains had changed the waterways too. Channels I knew like the back of my hand suddenly dead-ended or veered off in different directions. More than once, I had to backtrack after finding my path blocked by newly fallen trees or sandbars that hadn't been there before. As night fell, the swamp went quiet in a way I'd never experienced. The water turned black and still, like glass. Even with my flashlight, I couldn't see more than a few inches beneath the surface. It was like looking down into nothing, a perfect mirror that showed the stars above but hid whatever was below. Not even ripples from my boat seemed to last more than a second before the water went dead still again. I tied up my boat to a sturdy cypress root and set up camp on a small piece of dry ground. As I heated up my can of beans over a small fire, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me from the darkness beyond my little circle of light. I kept my rifle close that night, something I hadn't done since coming home from the war. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of the nightmare that would soon swallow me whole. I don't talk much about Korea. Some things are better left buried like the memories of that night when the Chinese came pouring over the hills, hundreds of them screaming as they charged our position. I was a combat engineer. We built bridges, cleared mines, that sort of thing, not exactly trained for what hit us. I woke up 2 days later in a medical tent with a nasty bump on my head and the news that my entire unit was gone. Every single one of them, dead while I lay unconscious behind a rock, knocked out by the blast that should have killed me too. 20 years later, and I still hear their voices sometimes, especially at night. Jim Ellis from Alabama, who always had a deck of cards. Lopez, who kept pictures of his kids in his helmet. Sergeant Miller, who saved my life twice before I couldn't save his. They call my name in my dreams, asking why I'm still here when they're not. The whiskey helps quiet them down most nights. Not enough to get drunk. I need to stay sharp out here, but just enough to dull the edges of those memories. The Park Service doesn't ask questions as long as I do my job, and nobody does it better than me. My face carries the reminder of that. Night. 3 jagged scars across my left cheek where shrapnel cut me open. My hands too, all crisscrossed with thin white lines. My right ear doesn't work so well anymore after an artillery shell landed too close. And my back, well, let's just say bending down isn't as easy as it used to be. I never got married. Came close once, back in '62, with a nice school teacher from Little Rock. But after the 3rd time, she woke up with me screaming and swinging at shadows. She decided that wasn't the life she wanted. Can't say I blame her. So it's just me in my daddy's old cabin when I'm not out on patrol. The cabin sits on the edge of the swamp, weathered grey wood that looks like it might fall over in a strong wind, but has stood through 50 years of storms. Inside it's simple, 1 room with a bed, table, 2 chairs and a wood stove. Photos of my parents on the wall, my dad in his World War I uniform looking young and sure of himself. I keep my own war medals in my pocket, 5 of them, including a Purple Heart. I touch them sometimes when the world starts closing in, just to remind myself that it was real, that I was there. These swamps raised me as much as my parents did. By the time I was 12, I could name every bird by its call, every fish by the way it moved underwater, every plant by its leaves. I learned to smell rain coming hours before the first drop fell, to find my way through fog so thick you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. The water and I, we understand each other. That's why they send me out to find the lost ones. Tourists who wander off the trails, hunters who don't make it back to their trucks, kids who go exploring too far from home. No matter how bad the weather or how dark the night, I always bring them back. Maybe because I couldn't bring my unit back. Maybe because every person I find alive quiets those voices just a little bit. My gear isn't fancy. Same M1 Garand rifle I trained with back in '51. Cleaned and oiled every week without fail. My combat knife rides on my hip, edge sharp enough to shave with. The first aid kit in my pack has military-grade supplies, better than the standard-issue stuff the Park Service hands out. Experience teaches you to be prepared. Last month, a couple of duck hunters came into the ranger station all fired up, about seeing something in the deepest part of the swamp. Said it was huge, walked on 2 legs but wasn't a man, covered in reddish-brown hair with eyes that glowed in their flashlight beams. I smiled and nodded, poured them more coffee, and chalked it up to too much moonshine and too little sleep. Local folks have been telling stories about the Fook monster for generations, just tall tales to scare children and tourists. After everything I saw in Korea, I figured there wasn't much in these swamps that could truly frighten me. I'd faced the worst that men could do to each other. What could be more terrifying than that? I was wrong, so terribly wrong. The 3rd day into my patrol, I found something that made my skin crawl. A cluster of pine trees with their bark, not just scratched, but deliberately marked. The marks formed shapes that almost looked like letters, but not in any language I'd ever seen. What really got to me was the smell. A heavy, musky odor so strong it burned my nose and made my eyes water. It reminded me of a bear, but 10 times stronger and with something else mixed in, something rotten. I'd just finished taking photos of the markings when it happened. Every bird in the swamp took off at once, hundreds of them bursting from the trees in a panic, wings slapping against leaves and branches. The sudden noise nearly gave me a heart attack. Then came the silence. No frogs croaking, no insects buzzing, nothing. Just the occasional distant splash that seemed to come from all directions and none at all. I pushed my boat faster through the water channels, telling myself it was just a normal patrol, but my hand kept drifting to my rifle and my eyes scanned the shoreline more carefully than usual. That's when I spotted a flash of bright orange through the trees, a hunter's vest. The camp was... I still have trouble describing what I found. 3 men had been camping there, according to the tent that now lay shredded across the clearing. Their boat was upside down, the metal hull crushed as if a car had rolled over it. And the men, there wasn't much left of them. One body was draped over a fallen log, another crumpled at the base of a tree. The third I found 50 yards away, or what was left of him. It looked like something had torn into them with incredible force, pulling limbs apart and... I'll spare you the details. 20 years as a ranger, I'd seen bear attacks, alligator victims, even a couple of panther maulings. Nothing like this, nothing even close. The smell hit me as I surveyed the scene, like rotting fish mixed with something worse, so strong I doubled over and threw up my breakfast. My head started spinning, and for a moment I worried I might pass out right there among the carnage. When I tried to radio in what I'd found, all I got was static. I checked my compass to mark the location, but the needle spun wildly, refusing to settle. Even my trusty rifle seemed affected. When I checked it, the bolt was sticky and hard to move, as if something had gummed up the mechanism overnight. What bothered me most wasn't the bodies or the blood. It was how their camping gear had been arranged. Their cooking pots were stacked in size order. Torn clothing was draped over branches in a deliberate pattern. A broken flashlight had been placed carefully in the center of what remained of their tent. This wasn't just an animal attack. This was something else. Something thinking. I snapped as many photos as I could and marked the spot on my map before pushing on. I needed to get back to the ranger station to report what I'd found. But as I started the boat's engine, it sputtered and died. 3 more tries, and it finally caught, only to die again 50 yards later. Something was wrong with the fuel line, but I couldn't find the problem. That's when I heard it, the distant crackle of gunfire and the hollow boom of artillery, voices shouting in Korean and English, men screaming in pain. I froze, knowing it couldn't be real, knowing those sounds belonged to another time and place. But they echoed across the water as clear as day. I shook my head hard, slapped my face, and the sounds faded. Just my mind playing tricks, I told myself. The stress of finding those bodies bringing back old memories. I got the engine running again and pushed on, trying to follow the sun west toward the ranger station. But nothing looked right. Landmarks I'd known my whole life seemed to have moved. Channels that should have connected were now dead ends. It was as if the swamp itself had rearranged overnight, turning familiar territory into a maze. My head started pounding, a deep throbbing pain behind my eyes. Flashes of memory hit me. The hills of Korea overlaid with cypress trees, Chinese soldiers moving between the trunks, my unit's faces reflected in the dark water below my boat. Past and present blurred together, making it hard to know what was real and what wasn't. I had to pull over and make camp as darkness fell. My hands shook as I tied up the boat and gathered firewood. I built my fire bigger than usual, creating a circle of light that pushed back the darkness. That night I didn't sleep. I sat with my back against a tree, rifle across my lap, listening to the unnatural silence of the swamp. In the small hours of the morning, I found fresh footprints in the mud near my boat, human-shaped but massive, at least 18 inches long. I stared at them in the beam of my flashlight. and as I watched, the impression seemed to deepen, as if whatever made them was pressing down again, invisible but present. That's when I knew I wasn't the hunter anymore. I was the prey. The fourth morning broke with a heavy fog that made the world vanish beyond 10 feet in any direction. I packed up camp quickly, my movements mechanical from years of practice, but clumsy from lack of sleep. Every noise made me jump, the plop of a frog hitting water, the rustle of leaves in the gentle breeze. I felt watched from every direction. I was pushing my boat through a narrow channel when I saw it. The water ahead began to bubble and churn, and then it rose up. At first, all I saw was a dark shape in the fog, tall and broad. Then it stepped forward, and I saw it clearly. It stood upright like a man, but so much bigger, close to 9 feet tall with shoulders twice as wide as mine. Its body was covered in thick, reddish-brown hair that dripped with swamp water. But its face, God help me, its face, the head, was shaped wrong, too long with a heavy brow that shadowed its eyes, but I could see them anyway, red, like embers in a dying fire, fixed on me with an intelligence that froze the blood in my veins. Its mouth was pulled back in what might have been a smile, showing teeth that belonged on a big cat, not anything that walks on 2 legs. I felt something I hadn't felt since Korea, the absolute certainty that I was looking at death. This wasn't just an animal. This was a predator that had been hunting humans for a very long time. And right now it was hunting me. My training kicked in. I raised my rifle and fired 3 quick shots. The bullets hit it square in the chest, making it stagger back. For 1 heartbeat, I thought I'd stopped it. Then it straightened up and looked down at the wounds. The holes were already closing. The bleeding stopped. It dug its claws into its own flesh and pulled out my bullets one by one, dropping them into the water with soft plunks. "William!" The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, a rasping whisper that somehow carried the voices of my dead unit. "Why did you live when we died, William?" A trick. Had to be a trick. But how could it know my name? How could it know about Korea? The gunshots seemed to enrage it. Its body tensed, muscles bunching under that matted hair. Foam dripped from its jaws as it let out a sound I still hear in my nightmares. Part roar, part scream, entirely inhuman. Then it moved, so fast I barely saw it, leaping through the water toward my boat. I gunned the engine and spun away, the boat's wake throwing up a wall of water behind me. I raced through channels blindly, ducking branches and barely avoiding tree trunks that loomed out of the fog. But no matter how fast I went, I could hear it coming behind me, splashing through water, crashing through undergrowth. At one point, I thought I'd lost it. I cut the engine and drifted into a small cove, hidden by hanging moss. That's when I noticed the water level rising around me, not slowly like a tide, but rapidly, as if something was controlling the flow. Within minutes, the low ground I'd planned to hide on was underwater, forcing me back into the open channel. It was waiting. This time, it wasn't alone. As I rounded a bend, an alligator lunged at my boat from the right, nearly capsizing me. I swerved left and almost ran straight into a water moccasin thicker than my arm, hanging from a branch right at head height. Everywhere I turned, the swamp's predators seemed to be working together, herding me deeper into the wilderness. My head pounded worse than before, and now I was seeing and hearing things constantly. The swamp trees became Korean hills. The calls of birds transformed into the radio chatter of my unit. I saw faces in the water, Lopez, Miller, Ellis, their dead eyes following me as I fled. "Should have been you, Billy," the monster called, using Lopez's voice perfectly. "Why'd you get to come home when we didn't?" I knew it wasn't real, knew it was using my guilt against me somehow, but knowing didn't stop the pain or the fear. Twice I caught myself answering the voices, begging forgiveness from men long dead. The creature hunted me all day, driving me in circles, cutting me off whenever I tried to head west toward the ranger station. It seemed to know these swamps as well as I did. maybe better. It would disappear for 30 minutes, letting me think I'd escaped, then suddenly appear ahead of me, forcing me to change course again. It was smart, setting traps that nearly caught me several times. A fallen tree that wasn't fully fallen, but dropped into the water as I passed beneath it. A seemingly solid patch of ground that turned out to be floating vegetation that gave way under my weight when I tried to cross it. By late afternoon, I was running on nothing but adrenaline and fear. My boat was nearly out of gas. My rifle jammed completely after firing at the creature a second time, with the same useless result. And the voices wouldn't stop. Night fell, and a cold rain began to fall. I found a small island with a ring of cypress trees and pulled my boat up onto the muddy shore. My hands shook so badly I could barely get a fire started. The rain threatened to put it out, but I huddled over the flames, feeding them stick after stick. In the darkness beyond my little fire, I could see its eyes, those glowing red points watching me, circling my position. Sometimes close, sometimes far away, but always there. It was playing with me now, enjoying my fear. I checked my supplies, half a canteen of water, no food, a knife, a first aid kit, and tucked in the bottom of my pack 4 sticks of dynamite we used for clearing log jams and beaver dams. Not much to work with, but I was running out of options. That night, as the creature paced around my camp and the rain fell in sheets, I made my plan. I wasn't going to run anymore. One way or another, this would end tomorrow. I thought of my daddy's cabin, of the ranger station, of the simple life I'd built after Korea. Then I thought of those 3 hunters, torn apart and arranged like dolls. If this thing got past me, how many more would die? For the first time in 20 years, I prayed. Not for myself, but for the strength to do what needed to be done. Dawn broke grey and cold through the mist. My fire had died hours ago, but I hadn't slept. Those red eyes had watched me all night, sometimes coming closer, sometimes fading back into the darkness, but never leaving. My joints ached from sitting in one position, rifle across my lap, though I knew the bullets wouldn't stop. I had a plan now. Not a good one, maybe, but the only one I had. I dug through my pack and pulled out the 4 dynamite sticks. In Korea, I'd learned how to use explosives to clear paths through minefields and take down barriers. Never thought those skills would save my life in an Arkansas swamp. I worked quickly, using my knife to connect the sticks together with wire from my emergency kit. I'd create one big blast instead of 4 small ones. As I worked, I kept my eyes on the tree line. The creature was still out there. I could feel it watching, waiting. My boat wouldn't start. The engine turned over once, then died with a sound like a last breath. No matter, I wasn't planning to run anymore. Instead, I pushed deeper into the swamp on foot, wading through chest deep. Water keeping to the most tangled paths where the vegetation grew thickest. I was looking for the right spot, somewhere to make my stand. I found it around midday. A horseshoe-shaped piece of high ground surrounded by water on 3 sides, with only a narrow strip of land connecting it to the mainland. Ancient cypress trees grew in a tight circle here, their massive roots creating a natural wall. If I positioned myself in the center, there was only one way in or out. I set my trap carefully. The dynamite went under a fallen log near the entrance to my little fortress, covered with leaves and mud to hide it. The detonator. Cord stretched back to my position behind the largest tree trunk. I checked and double-checked everything, knowing I would only get one chance. Then I waited. The swamp grew quieter as the afternoon wore on. Even the insects seemed to sense what was coming. The light began to fade, not into proper night, but into that strange half-darkness that comes with heavy cloud cover. The air felt thick, hard to breathe, heavy with moisture and that awful musky smell. William Thompson. This time it wasn't using my unit's voices. This was its own voice, deep, rumbling, like rocks grinding together. It knew my full name. I didn't answer. My hands were shaking so badly I had to sit on them to keep still. I know your fear, William Thompson. I taste it in the air. It was closer now, just beyond the tree line. I could hear water splashing as it moved. Your friends died in Korea. You lived. Why did you live, William? The question hit me like a physical blow. Why had I lived? It was the question I'd asked myself every day for 20 years. Why me? Why not them? They hate you for living, it continued, moving closer. I could see branches moving, water rippling. They want you to join them. And suddenly I understood. This thing, whatever it was, fed on fear and guilt as much as flesh. It had been in my head since I entered its territory, pulling out my darkest thoughts, using them against me. The voices, the visions, they weren't real. They were weapons, designed to break me down. Something snapped inside me. A lifetime of carrying guilt and shame, of believing I should have died with my unit. It all crystallized into a sudden, perfect clarity. They don't hate me, I said, my voice steady for the first time in days. They're dead. They don't feel anything. You're not them. You're just a thing in the swamp using their memory. It snarled, a sound that made my bones vibrate. It wasn't used to prey that fought back, not like this. Then it charged. It burst through the narrow entrance to my fortress, moving faster than anything that size had a right to move. 9 feet of muscle and rage, those red eyes locked on me, claws extended. I waited until it was directly over my hidden dynamite. 1 second, 2. It was almost on me, close enough that I could smell its hot, rotten breath. I pressed the detonator. Nothing happened. The creature slammed into me, knocking me back against a tree trunk hard enough to drive the air from my lungs. Its claws raked across my chest and stomach, cutting through my jacket and shirt like they were paper, slicing deep into flesh. The pain was blinding, immediate. It lifted me by the throat, bringing my face level with its own. This close, I could see intelligence in those red eyes, ancient and cold. It had done this before, many times. It would do it again. You failed them, it growled. You'll fail everyone. Blood soaked my shirt, running down to pool at my feet. I could feel my strength ebbing away with each heartbeat, but my hand was still clutched around the detonator. With my last bit of strength, I reached up with my other hand and grabbed a handful of that matted hair, pulling myself closer to its face. Not this time, I whispered. I squeezed the detonator again, harder this time, feeling it click under my thumb. The world turned white, heat and sound washed over me, through me. I felt myself flying backward, still in the creature's grip. We hit the water together, a tangle of man and monster. The pain was gone now. I felt strangely peaceful as water closed over my head. Through the murky darkness, I saw the creature thrashing beside me, its body torn and burning from the blast. But even as I watched, the wounds began to close. The fire's going out. No, it couldn't end like this, not with that thing still alive, still able to hunt. I still had my knife. With the last of my strength, I pulled it from my belt and drove it deep into the creature's eye, the one place I hadn't seen it heal. It let out a scream that shook the water around us, a sound of pain and rage and something else. Surprise, maybe even fear. We sank together, locked in a final embrace. As my vision began to darken around the edges, I thought of my unit. For the first time in 20 years, their faces weren't accusing. They were smiling, welcoming. I'm coming home. Boys, I thought as the darkness took me. I'm finally coming home. My name is James Kowalski, but everyone calls me Jimmy. I've been a park ranger at Huron-Manistee National Forest for just over 3 years now. Today started like any other autumn day on patrol. Peaceful, quiet, and exactly what I needed. The trees around me were on fire with fall colors. Huge old maples and oaks stretched up so high, their red and gold leaves made a ceiling above me. When the sun broke through, it painted the ground with spots of light, like walking through a giant church with stained glass windows. I loved the sounds of the forest in fall. Woodpeckers tapped away at tree trunks, looking for bugs. Chipmunks chattered to each other as they ran in and out of hollow logs. The wind made the dying leaves whisper to each other. Crunch, crunch, crunch went my boots through the leaves. It was so normal, so calming. Just me and the forest, like always. I felt good out here, in control. This was my area. I knew every trail, every rock, every creek. 3 years of walking these same paths had burned the map into my brain. Nothing could surprise me here, or so I thought. About 2 hours into my patrol, I stopped dead in my tracks. Something was wrong. In front of me was a perfect circle of dead plants, about 30 feet across. Every leaf, every blade of grass inside that circle was brown and dry. Outside the circle, everything was alive and colorful. It didn't make any sense. I knelt down to touch the dead grass. It crumbled between my fingers like it had been dead for months, not days. What the hell, I muttered, checking my watch to note the time, but my digital watch wasn't showing the right time. Instead of 2:15 p.m., it showed 25:73. I blinked hard and looked again. The numbers flickered, then the screen went completely blank. Great! I checked my old school backup watch, a habit from my Coast Guard days. At least it still worked, 2:16 p.m. I reached for my phone to call it in, then remembered. The storm 3 days ago had knocked out the cell tower. Budget cuts meant I was alone out here for the next 3 days. No backup coming, no check-ins. Just as I was deciding what to do next, I heard a rustling in the bushes. I tensed up, hand moving to my gun, then relaxed when a golden retriever trotted out, tail wagging like crazy. "Hey, buddy," I said, kneeling down. "Where's your owner?" The dog had a blue collar but no tags, just a local address stamped into the leather. Strange that someone would let their dog wander this far into the forest alone. Suddenly, I felt a chill run through me. The temperature dropped like someone had opened a freezer door. The warm October day turned ice cold in seconds. I watched in disbelief as frost started forming on the leaves around me. My breath came, out in white clouds. The dog whined and pressed against my leg. "It's okay, boy," I said, though I wasn't sure if that was true. I decided to head back to the ranger station. Something was off, and I needed to radio in, even if cell service was down. I turned to follow the main trail back, but it wasn't where it should be. Instead of the wide, well-marked path I'd been following all morning, there was a narrow trail I didn't recognize. I checked my map, then looked up at the landmarks around me. Nothing matched up. Either the map was wrong or... No, that was impossible. Maps don't just change. The dog barked once, then took off running down the strange trail. "Hey, come back!" I called, but it was gone. The air felt heavy and thick around me, hard to breathe despite the cold. It smelled like rain was coming, that sharp ozone smell before a big storm. But when I looked up, the sky was clear blue between the tree branches. Something was very wrong in my forest, and I had a sinking feeling that the dead circle and my broken watch were just the beginning. I wasn't always a park ranger. 3 years ago, I was swimming through waves as tall as houses, trying to save lives. I was a rescue swimmer with the Coast Guard on Lake Superior. It was a job I loved until that stormy night in November. The call came in about a small boat in trouble. A family of 5, Mom, Dad, and 3 kids. 2 of them were twins, just 4 years old. By the time our helicopter got there, their boat was already half underwater. I jumped into those black waves without a second thought. The water was so cold it felt like being stabbed with 1,000 knives. I managed to reach the father first, then the mother and their oldest child. But those twins, those poor little twins. The waves were too strong. The helicopter couldn't hold position. I swam until my arms felt like they were going to fall off, but I couldn't reach them in time. I can still hear their cries for help over the roar of the storm. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night, feeling like I'm drowning, like I'm there with them. After that night, I wasn't the same. I started drinking too much. My wife tried to help, but I pushed her away. How could she understand what it feels like to watch children die when you're supposed to save them? Our marriage fell apart 6 months later. I touched the rescue swimmer pin on my jacket, a gift from the twins' grandfather. "You did everything you could, son," he told me at the funeral. He forgave me, but I still haven't forgiven myself. That's why I'm here now in the middle of the forest, alone. I figured I couldn't hurt anyone else out here. Just me and the trees. And the animals. No one else to fail. I keep myself busy. I run 5 miles every morning, do 200 push-ups, and swim across the lake and back whenever I can. It's like I'm punishing my body for not being strong enough that night. I know every inch of this forest. I've mapped all the trails, caves, and streams. I can track animals, find lost hikers, and survive with just a knife if I have to. Out here, I feel like I'm in control again. Today, I had all my usual gear with me. Rope, first aid kit, emergency blanket, food, water, and my Glock 21. The gun is standard issue, loaded with hollow point bullets that can stop a charging bear. Not that I've ever needed to use it. Before I left the station this morning, my boss mentioned some strange animal attack reports. Hunters claiming to see something big moving through the trees, something that walked on 2 legs but wasn't human. He laughed it off as people spending too much time alone in the woods. "Probably just a bear," he said. I should have asked for more details. Standing there in that circle of dead plants, with frost forming on leaves in October, I had a feeling that no amount of Coast Guard training had prepared me for what was happening. My hands were steady, but my heart was starting to beat faster. I decided to keep moving. Standing still wasn't going to solve anything. I'd find my way back to a trail I recognized, then head to the station and report everything I'd seen. But as I walked, that feeling of being watched grew stronger. The back of my neck tingled. My instincts, the ones that had kept me alive in storm-tossed waters, were screaming that something was very wrong. And in my experience, those instincts were rarely wrong. I'd been walking for about 20 minutes when I noticed something odd. A fallen oak tree lay across the path ahead of me. Its trunk was split down the middle, with mushrooms growing along the crack. I stepped over it and kept going. 10 minutes. Later, I stopped and stared. The same fallen oak tree was in front of me again. Same split trunk, same mushrooms in the exact same spots. "That's impossible," I whispered. I looked behind me, then ahead again. I hadn't walked in a circle. The path had been straight. Yet here was the same tree, like someone had picked it up and moved it. I took out my knife and made a small mark on the trunk, then stepped over it and kept walking. 5 minutes later, the tree was there again, with my mark on it. My heart beat faster. Trees don't move. I decided to leave the trail and cut through the forest. Maybe the path was playing tricks on me somehow. As I pushed through the underbrush, the forest fell silent. Not quiet, silent. 1 second, birds were chirping, squirrels were rustling through leaves, and the wind was blowing. The next second, nothing. Like someone had pressed a mute button on the whole forest. The silence was so sudden that my ears started ringing, a high-pitched sound that seemed to come from inside my head rather than outside. I shook my head, trying to clear it, but the ringing just got louder. Then I smelled it. Blood. Following my nose, I pushed through a thick stand of bushes and froze. A hunting camp lay in front of me, or what was left of one. 3 tents were shredded to ribbons. Cooking gear was scattered everywhere. And the blood. 3 men had been camping here. Now they were in pieces, scattered across the clearing like someone had torn them apart and thrown the parts around. An arm hung from a tree branch. A leg was 20 yards away. The rest I couldn't look too long without feeling sick. 16 years in the Coast Guard, and I'd never seen anything like this. No animal I knew could do this kind of damage. Not a bear, not a wolf, not a mountain lion. The smell hit me next. Wet dog mixed with copper and something like electricity, so strong it made my eyes water and my stomach turn. I pulled out my GPS unit to mark the location and call for backup. The screen showed I was in the middle of Lake Superior, hundreds of miles from where I actually stood. I tried the radio next. Instead of static or voices, all I got was a weird howling sound, like wind through a narrow canyon. I quickly shut it off. Looking around the destroyed camp, I saw clothes and gear hanging from tree branches. Not just thrown there, but arranged in a pattern, like some kind of sick decoration. The bloodstains on the ground weren't random either. They formed shapes, triangles and circles that no splashing blood should make. That's when I heard it. Children laughing, not just any children. I recognized those voices. The twins from the U-boat, the ones I couldn't save. "Hello?" I called out, my voice shaking. "Is someone there?" The laughter stopped then. "Help us, Jimmy. Save us this time." My blood turned to ice. No one out here knew my name, and those children had died 3 years ago. I backed away from the camp, eyes scanning the trees. In the soft mud near the edge of the clearing, I saw tracks, wolf tracks, big ones. Then the tracks changed. Mid-step, the wolf prints became human footprints, then back to wolf again, all in a single line of tracks. My head started pounding. A wave of nausea hit me so hard I had to lean against a tree to stay upright. My vision blurred, then doubled. I blinked hard, trying to clear it. When I could see straight again, I noticed a familiar rock formation in the distance. The problem was, that formation should have been 5 miles north of here, and the creek I could hear bubbling nearby, that should have been on the east side of my patrol area, not here. It was like the whole forest had been shuffled around like a deck of cards. I swallowed hard, fighting back another wave of nausea. Something was very wrong with this place, and I had a feeling it was only going to get worse. I needed to get out of there. Whatever had killed those men might still be nearby. I picked a direction that I hoped would lead back to the ranger station and started walking fast. The sun was getting lower in the sky, sending long shadows across the forest floor. I kept looking over my shoulder, feeling like something was following me. Then I saw it. At first, I thought it was just a shadow between the trees. But shadows don't have glowing yellow eyes. I stopped and stared, my hand automatically reaching for my gun. It stood at the edge of the trees, watching me. It was huge, at least 7 feet tall. It looked like a wolf, but it was standing on 2 legs, like a person. Its arms hung down, ending in paws, with long claws that gleamed in the fading light. I'd heard stories about the Michigan Dogman, a local legend, something to scare kids around campfires. I never believed those stories, until now. The creature stared at me, and I felt like it was looking right through me. Not like an animal, sizing up prey, but like something smart, something that was thinking and planning. I felt naked, exposed, like it could see every weakness I had. As I watched, frozen in place, the creature began to change. Its body seemed to melt and shift, the fur receding. In seconds, where the wolf thing had stood, there was now a tall, thin man. Then it changed again, becoming something in between. Part wolf, part human. And the whole time, it kept its yellow eyes locked on mine. A howl broke the silence, not from the creature in front of me, but from somewhere behind me. Then another from my left, another from my right. There wasn't just one of these things. There was a whole pack. The one watching me opened its mouth, and I heard a child's voice come out. "Jimmy, why didn't you swim faster? Why did you let us drown?" It was using the twins' voices again. My hands shook as I pulled out my gun and aimed it at the creature's chest. "Stay back," I shouted. It took a step forward. I fired. The sound of the gunshot was shockingly loud in the quiet forest. I saw the bullet hit the creature right in the chest, but it didn't fall. It didn't even flinch. It was like the bullet passed right through it. I emptied my entire magazine. 13 rounds, center mass. It did nothing. The creature just kept coming. I turned and ran. Branches whipped at my face as I sprinted through the forest. I jumped over fallen logs and splashed through shallow streams. But no matter how fast I ran, the creatures seemed to be everywhere. One would appear in front of me, forcing me to change direction. Then it would somehow be ahead of me again. It was like they could jump through time or space. The trees themselves seemed to be working against me. Branches reached out like arms to block my path. Roots rose up from the ground to trip me. The whole forest had become a trap. As I ran, I suddenly felt water filling my lungs. I couldn't breathe. I was drowning, just like those twins had drowned 3 years ago. But I wasn't in water. I was still running through the forest. Somehow, the creatures were making me feel what those children felt. The forest around me kept changing. 1 minute, I was running on dry land. The next, I seemed to be underwater in Lake Superior, with the twins floating just out of reach. Then back to the forest again. I couldn't tell what was real anymore. Was I in the forest? Was I drowning in the lake? Had I ever really left that stormy night 3 years ago? A branch caught my foot, and I went down hard, tumbling down a short slope. I hit my head on something and lay there dazed as the howls of the creatures grew closer. When I managed to sit up, I found myself at the edge of a small clearing. In the center stood the golden retriever I'd seen earlier. It looked at me with those same yellow eyes the wolf creature had. "You're one of them," I whispered. The dog's form began to melt and shift, growing larger, standing up on its hind legs. In seconds, the friendly golden retriever was gone, replaced by another 7-foot dogman. I was trapped, hurt, and out of bullets, and night was falling fast. I scrambled to my feet and ran again. My legs were heavy, my lungs burning. I'd been running for what felt like hours, but the sun hadn't completely set yet. Time itself seemed broken here. As I ran, a thought hit me. Maybe I couldn't outrun these things. Maybe I wasn't meant to. All these years I'd been running from what happened on Lake Superior, running from the guilt, running from the faces of those twins in my dreams. These creatures, whatever they were using that guilt against me, using my greatest failure as a weapon. What if I stopped running? I remembered something I'd seen earlier in my patrol, a beaver dam on the eastern creek. It was huge, holding back a small lake's worth of water, and it wasn't far from here, if I could trust any directions in this twisted forest. I changed course, heading for where I thought the dam should be. The howls followed me, sometimes closer, sometimes farther, away like the pack was playing with me. I had a plan now. Not much of one, but it was better than running until I collapsed. The emergency pack on my belt had a few small flares and some waterproof matches. If I could reach the dam and somehow break it, maybe the flood would wash these things away. It was a desperate plan, but I was a desperate man. I pushed through a thicket of brambles, and suddenly, there it was, the beaver dam. Somehow I'd found it. It was bigger than I remembered. A massive wall of sticks and mud holding back a small lake. Below it, the creek bed led down into a steep ravine with rapids at the bottom. I slid down the bank to the base of the dam, my boots sinking into the soft mud. The water trickled through in small streams, but the dam was strong. I'd need more than my hands to break it. A howl cut through the twilight, much closer now. I looked up to see yellow eyes watching from the top of the bank. More pairs of eyes appeared beside the first, surrounding me. I needed more time, but I was out of time. The largest dogman, the alpha, leaped down the bank toward me. I tried to dodge, but it was too fast. Its claws ripped across my chest, tearing through my jacket and shirt, cutting deep. I felt my ribs crack, and breathing suddenly became torture. I fell to my knees in the mud, one hand pressed to my bleeding chest. The pack closed in, circling like real wolves, but with a human intelligence glinting in their eyes. I'd been running for hours. My legs were rubber. My lungs felt like they were on fire, and now blood soaked my torn shirt. I couldn't run anymore. This was it. This was where I would die. As the creatures circled closer, the children's voices came again. "Why didn't you save us, Jimmy? You let us die." Something clicked in my mind then. A memory of the twins' grandfather at the funeral, his hand on my shoulder. "You did everything you could, son." And I had. I really had done everything possible that night. The storm had been too strong, the boat too far gone, the children too far away. No human could have saved them all. It wasn't my fault. As that realization washed over me, something changed. The Dogman Alpha snarled, as if it could sense what I was thinking. It took a step back. They fed on guilt, on pain, on failure, and I was finally letting mine go. I reached into my emergency pack and pulled out the 3 flares I had left. With shaking hands, I struck them all at once and shoved them deep into the base of the beaver dam where the sticks were driest. The Alpha lunged at me, but it was too late. The flares caught, and the dry wood of the dam began to burn. Smoke billowed out as the fire spread quickly through the structure. The pack howled in what sounded like anger, or maybe fear. They began to pace, looking at the dam, then at me, then back at the dam. I dragged myself a few feet away, leaving a trail of blood in the mud. My vision was starting to go dark around the edges. I'd lost too much blood. With a loud crack, the dam began to give way. Water trickled through at first, then burst through in a great flood. The dogmen scrambled to get away, but the water was too fast. It swept them downstream, their howls fading as the current carried them toward the rapids below. I tried to climb up the bank, away from the rushing water, but I had no strength left. The flood caught me and pulled me under. As the water closed over my head, I felt a strange sense of peace. I wasn't drowning in Lake Superior during a storm. I was dying in a forest creek of my own choice, having finally faced my demons. In that moment, I understood what those twins must have felt in their final moments. Not fear, but a kind of acceptance, a letting go. The water carried me down into the rapids. My lungs burned for air, but I felt strangely calm. The last thing I saw before everything went black was a patch of sky between the trees where the first stars were coming out. My name is Carlos Mendoza. I've been a park ranger at the Gila National Wilderness in New Mexico for almost 3 years now. It's good work for a man like me. Quiet, peaceful, and most importantly, away from people. After 2 tours in Vietnam, I don't do well with crowds anymore. The desert has its own kind of beauty. As I walk my patrol route this evening, the giant saguaro cacti stand tall against the orange and purple sunset like old guardians. They've been here longer than any of us, and they'll probably be here long after we're gone. The sun hangs low, painting everything gold. I stop to take a drink from my canteen. The evening is coming alive around me. Coyotes starting their nightly songs in the distance, an owl hooting somewhere to my left. A gentle breeze moves through the mesquite branches, making them whisper. Out here I can almost forget the war, almost. The vastness of the desert helps me breathe. No jungle canopy closing in overhead. No narrow tunnels where enemy soldiers could be waiting. No smell of damp earth and death. Just open sky and clean air. For a little while, the memories stay quiet. I check my watch. Still 3 hours of light left. I'm on a 3-day solo patrol of the southern section. The solitude doesn't bother me. In fact, I prefer it. My superiors understand that I work better alone. They don't ask questions about the nightmares or the drinking. As long as I do my job, they leave me be. My fingers find the rosary in my pocket, smooth beads worn from years of worried touches. Father Miguel gave it to me before he died. We We're trapped in a tunnel collapse together. I made it out. He didn't. Sometimes I think he's the only reason I'm still sane. I adjust the weight of my pack and touch the familiar shape of my M1 pistol at my hip. Old habits. Even here, surrounded by nothing but nature, I can't shake the feeling that I need to be ready. My K-bar knife hangs on my belt on the other side. Between the two, I've survived worse situations than a desert patrol. As I round the bend toward my first checkpoint, I remember the conversation I had with some of the tribal elders last week. They warned me about increased monster activity in these parts. I smiled and nodded, but didn't take it seriously. Just old stories, mixed with worries about drug smugglers crossing through the reservation lands. I've faced real monsters in Vietnam. Nothing in these hills scares me. The sun still hasn't moved much, which is strange. It seems stuck on the horizon, like time itself is stretching out. Must be playing tricks on my eyes. I shake my head and keep walking, my bad knee giving me a twinge of pain with each step. The desert stretches out endlessly before me, peaceful and empty, or so I thought. I've been walking for hours now, but something feels off. The sun should have set completely, but it's still hanging there like it's frozen in time. My watch has stopped too. I tap the glass, but the hands don't move. As I reach the ridge overlooking Eagle Creek, I spot something that makes me stop in my tracks. The ancient petroglyphs, rock carvings made by Native Americans hundreds of years ago, have been damaged. Deep scratches cut across the stone, like someone took giant claws and tried to erase the symbols. What the hell? I mutter, running my fingers over the marks. They're fresh, still dusty with newly broken stone. No animal I know could do this. The claw marks are huge, space too wide for a bear or mountain lion. A cold feeling settles in my stomach. I've learned to trust my gut. It kept me alive in the tunnels of Cu Chi when others didn't make it. Something isn't right here. I pull out my radio to call it in. Base, this is Mendoza. I'm at checkpoint 4, found some vandalism on the petroglyphs. Over. Nothing but static comes back at me. I try again. Base, do you copy? Over. More static, followed by a strange pulsing sound that makes my head throb. Great. The radio tower must be down. Strange, since there wasn't a cloud in the sky today, let alone a storm. The temperature drops suddenly, making me shiver. Just minutes ago, I was sweating in the heat. Now my breath makes little clouds in front of my face. That's not normal, even for desert nights. I look around, suddenly noticing how quiet it's gotten. No coyotes, no owls. Even the wind has died down, just silence. A few rabbits hop peacefully nearby, which is a good sign. Prey animals don't hang around when predators are close. Still, something feels wrong. The air feels thick, heavy, like I'm underwater or in some pressurized room. It's hard to take a full breath. I decide to make camp early tonight. As I set up my tent, I can't shake the feeling of being watched. Every few minutes, I turn around, half expecting to see someone or something standing there. But the desert remains empty. My canteen feels lighter than it should. I check my map for the nearest water source. There's a spring about half a mile east that should be reliable this time of year. But when I reach it, the spring is bone dry. That's impossible. I checked it just last week. As night finally falls, the stars don't look right. They seem too close, too bright, and in patterns I don't recognize. I've used these stars to navigate the desert for years, but tonight they're like strangers. I try to sleep but keep jerking awake at small sounds. The temperature swings wildly. 1 minute I'm sweating, the next shivering. My dreams, when they come, are a mix of desert and jungle. I see Father Miguel's face, hear the screams of my squad. I wake up gasping, reaching for my gun. Something metallic fills my mouth, like I'm sucking on a penny. My compass spins in useless circles when I check it. All my senses are screaming danger, but there's nothing to fight, nothing to run from. Just the vast empty desert that suddenly feels like enemy territory. Tomorrow, I'll head back to base. Radio or no radio, something is very wrong out here. Morning comes, but the sun feels wrong. Too bright, yet not warm enough. I pack up quickly, not bothering with breakfast. The silence is getting to me. No birds singing, no insects buzzing, just dead air. I decide to take a shortcut through Coyote Canyon. It's not on my patrol route, but it'll get me back to base faster. The canyon walls rise on either side of me, making me feel small. I don't like being boxed in like this, but I push forward. The smell hits me first, like rotting meat and something else, musky and sharp. My stomach turns, and I pull my bandana over my nose. Around the next bend, I find the source. 5 bodies are spread around a campfire that's long gone cold. Drug smugglers, based on the packages stacked nearby. But what happened to them wasn't a border dispute or a deal gone wrong. Their bodies are twisted in ways that human bodies shouldn't twist. Massive wounds tear through their clothes and flesh, and they're arranged in a circle, all facing outward, like they were protecting themselves from something that came at them from all sides. My head starts to swim, the world tilting sideways for a moment. Whatever killed these men isn't something I want to meet. I kneel down to check for ID, trying to breathe through my mouth. That's when I see the footprints, human-shaped but huge, nearly twice the size of my boot. The ground here is hard-packed dirt that shouldn't hold prints at all, but these are pressed deep, like whatever made them weighed hundreds of pounds. Around the edges of each print is a strange, shiny substance that looks like crushed crystals. I touch one of the crystals and immediately regret it. My fingertips go numb, then start to tingle painfully. I wipe them clean on my pants, but the feeling doesn't go away. Boom! The sound of an explosion makes me drop to the ground, drawing my pistol in one smooth motion. Gunfire follows, the familiar rat-tat-tat of AK-47s. My heart pounds as the jungle closes in around me. Viet Cong in the trees, my squad shouting for cover. I blink hard, and the jungle fades. There's no explosion, no gunfire, just the silent canyon and dead men. My hands shake as I holster my weapon. What the hell is happening to me? I need to report the bodies and get out of here. I pull my radio again, but this time, instead of static, I hear something worse. Whispers in Vietnamese, mixed with the screams of dying men. I throw the radio down like it's burning my hand. As I move to leave the canyon, something catches my eye. About 15 feet up, a saguaro cactus hangs what's left of a deer. Its skin is intact, like an empty bag, but there are no bones inside. Nothing should be able to do that. Pull out all the bones without breaking the skin. I pick up my pace, trying to get back to familiar ground, but nothing looks right. The hills are in the wrong places. Landmarks I've known for years seem to have moved. A path that should take 10 minutes stretches on for over an hour. My vision starts to play tricks on me. The edges break apart into colorful patterns. Past and present mixed together. 1 minute I'm in New Mexico, the next back in the tunnels of Cu Chi. I stumble, catching myself against a rock. The rock is warm and sticky. I pull my hand back to find it covered in a thick, clear fluid that smells like rotten eggs and wet fur. Looking up, I see more of it dripping from the canyon wall, coming from somewhere above. That's when I hear it, a sound no human throat could make. Part roar, part scream, with something like words buried inside. It echoes off the canyon walls, impossible to tell where it's coming from. My training kicks in. I pull my pistol and put my back against the wall. Whatever made that sound is close, and I have a terrible feeling it's been following me all along. I hold my breath, listening. The sound doesn't come again, but I feel a change in the air. It's heavier, like before a storm. The hair on my arms stands up. Something is watching me. I scan the canyon rim, looking for movement. Nothing, just red rocks and a few scraggly plants. Then I see it. Between 2 narrow rocks stands something that shouldn't be able to fit there. It's huge, at least 12 feet tall, covered in reddish-brown hair. For a second, I think it's a bear standing on its hind legs, but no bear looks like this. Its arms hang down almost to its knees, ending in hands with long, curved claws. Its head is massive, with a ridge of bone like a gorilla's. But its face is almost human, with deep-set eyes that look straight at me. My whole body freezes up. Every instinct screams at me to run, but I can't move. I've hunted and been hunted. I know what it feels like to be prey. This is worse. The thing tilts its head, studying me. Then it moves. Something that big shouldn't be so fast. But it flows like water down the canyon wall, covering 30 feet in seconds. I raise my pistol and fire twice. The bullets hit. I'm sure of it. But the creature doesn't even flinch. It keeps coming. A smell hits me, so strong I gag. My vision swims, and suddenly I'm back in the tunnels of Vietnam, water dripping down dirt walls, the beam of my flashlight showing only darkness ahead, the weight of my rifle in sweaty hands. No! I shake my head hard. I can't afford flashbacks now. I fire again, aiming for the head this time. The creature pauses, not hurt but annoyed. It makes that sound again. That raw scream that hurts my ears. I turn and run. I'm no coward, but I know when I'm outmatched. My boots pound the dirt as I sprint down the canyon. I glance back once. The monster is following, not running, but walking with long, easy strides, like it knows I can't escape. My radio crackles to life on my belt. "Carlos, help us! We're trapped in the tunnel." It's Miguel's voice. But that's impossible. Miguel is dead, has been for years. Something hits me from behind. Not the creature, but a wave of something. Electricity. My muscles lock up, and I fall face first. Into the dirt. My watch sparks on my wrist. The metal taste in my mouth gets stronger. I force myself back to my feet. The canyon ahead of me shifts and warps. 1 second it's New Mexico desert, the next it's Vietnamese jungle. I can't tell what's real anymore. The creature is closer now, moving steadily toward me. In its eyes, I see intelligence. It's not just hunting, it's playing with me, testing me. I empty my gun at it. The bullets seem to sink into its body without effect. Maybe they're dissolving. I don't know. I toss the useless weapon aside and pull my K-bar knife. "Come on then!" I shout, voice cracking. "Come on!" It stops about 20 feet away. Then it does something worse than attacking. It speaks. Not with words, but somehow I hear things in my head. The screams of my squad as the tunnel collapsed, the last prayer Father Miguel said before he died. My daughter's voice asking why Daddy gets so angry. How does it know these things? How is it? In my head. My legs start to go numb. The smell coming from the creature is making me dizzy, almost happy. Part of me wants to just sit down, close my eyes, let whatever happens, happen. But another part, the survivor, fights back. I see a small opening in the canyon wall behind me. A cave entrance, barely big enough for a man to squeeze through, too small for the creature. Without thinking, I dive for it. The darkness swallows me as I crawl deeper into the cave. Tight spaces usually trigger my worst panic attacks, but right now, tight spaces might keep me alive. I hear the monster outside, sniffing at the entrance. Then a roar that shakes loose dirt from the cave ceiling. It can't get in, but I can't stay here forever. And something tells me it's very, very patient. The cave is pitch black after the first few feet. My breathing echoes off the close walls. Sweat runs down my face, not just from running, but from fighting my fear of tight spaces. Every second in here feels like the tunnel collapse in Vietnam, but I force myself to keep going. I feel my way forward, trying to see if there's another way out. The cave gets wider as I move deeper. I can stand up now. I pull out my flashlight, relieved when it actually works. The beam shows a series of connected chambers stretching back into the mountain. Ancient paintings cover some walls, more Native American art, similar to the petroglyphs outside. I recognize some of the images. A tall, hairy figure. People running. People dying. The tribal elders weren't just telling stories. I checked my watch, but it's still dead. No idea how long I've been in here. My head throbs with each heartbeat, and my vision keeps sliding between desert cave and Vietnamese tunnel. I need to get a grip. A low rumble comes from somewhere ahead. Not the creature, it sounds like water. Following the sound, I find an underground stream cutting through the rock. At least I won't die of thirst. As I kneel to drink, I notice something carved into the stone beside the stream. A circle of symbols I don't understand, but they feel important. I've stumbled into some kind of sacred place. The ground shakes, dust falls from the ceiling. The creature is trying to dig its way in. I don't have much time. I rest my hand on the carved circle, not sure why. The rock feels warm. I could use some help here, I whisper to whoever might be listening. That's when I hear it, the scrape of claws on stone, getting closer. Not from the entrance where I came in, but from deeper in the cave. There's another way in, and the creature has found it. I'm trapped. My light catches movement up ahead. A massive shape fills the tunnel, blocking any escape. The reddish-brown hair, those two human eyes. It's inside with me now. I back up until I hit the wall. My fingers find the rosary in my pocket. I clutch it tight as the monster approaches. Its smell fills the cave, making me dizzy. My legs start to give out. A memory flashes, Father Miguel praying as the tunnel collapsed around us. His face peaceful, even as death came for him. I start to pray in Spanish, the words coming automatically. Padre nuestro que estás en el cielo. The creature pauses. A look almost like pain crosses its face. The smell weakens just a bit. I keep praying, louder now. It roars and lunges forward. I dodge, but not fast enough. Its claws rake across my back, tearing through my uniform and skin. Pain explodes along my spine. I fall, my legs going numb. Blood soaks through my shirt, hot and sticky. I roll onto my back, still clutching the rosary. The monster towers over me. In its eyes I see hunger, but also something like curiosity. It reaches down with one massive hand. The cave walls shift around me. 1 second I'm here, the next I'm back in Ku Chai. Viet Cong soldiers surround me. My squad screams for help. Everything mixes together until I can't tell what's real. But through it all, I keep praying. The words are all I have left. My hand brushes against something on my belt. The grenade. The one I'm not supposed to have. The one I kept from Vietnam, against all regulations. A clarity washes over me. I know what I have to do. As the creature bends closer, I pull the pin on the grenade. For Miguel, I whisper. For all of them. I shove the grenade into a crack in the ceiling directly above us and roll away as best I can with my injured back. The explosion is deafening. In the enclosed space, rock and dirt rain down. The creature screams, a sound so human it chills my blood. The ceiling collapses between us, tons of stone falling. Pain shoots through my body as rocks hit me. Something heavy pins my legs. Dust fills my lungs, making me cough blood. But I'm still alive, for now. The cave is silent except for falling pebbles and my ragged breathing. My flashlight lies nearby, miraculously still working, casting crazy shadows on the wall. I can't feel my legs anymore. My back is on fire. Each breath is harder than the last. I know I'm not getting out of here, but neither is the creature. I can feel it on the other side of the rockfall, alive but trapped. I've done what I came to do. I've stopped it. I close my eyes and clutch the rosary tighter. I start whispering. Names: Miguel, Johnson, Ramirez, Cooper, Chen. My squad, my friends, I'll be with them soon. As darkness closes in, I feel strangely peaceful. The jungle and desert fade away. The pain eases. For the first time in years, I'm not afraid. 2 weeks later, a search party found what was left of the canyon. The explosion had changed everything. Rocks piled high where there used to be a path, a new shape to the land. 4 tribal elders led the group, their faces grim as they climbed over the fallen stones. "Here," said the oldest one, pointing to a small opening. "Dig here." They worked for hours in the hot sun, moving rocks one by one. No one spoke much. They all felt something watching them from the deeper parts of the cave, something they couldn't see but knew was there. When they finally reached the body, everyone went quiet. Ranger Carlos Mendoza lay curled on his side, one hand still clutching a worn rosary. His face looked peaceful, despite the blood and dust, like a man who had found rest after a long, hard journey. "He fought it," whispered one of the elders. "He sealed it in." They wrapped his body carefully and carried him out. As they left the canyon, their radios crackled with strange sounds, voices speaking words no one could understand, mixed with static that rose and fell like breathing. Back at the ranger station, they found his locker. Inside was a picture of a little girl with his eyes and a letter he'd started writing to her. "Dear Maria," it said, "I hope someday you'll understand why your daddy was the way he was. Some wars don't end when you come home." That night, as the elders performed their ceremony for the dead, their instruments picked up readings they couldn't explain. Electromagnetic pulses coming from the sealed cave, stronger than before, rhythmic like a heartbeat. 3 months later, a group of hikers reported their compasses spinning in circles near the canyon. They said they heard something calling their names from inside the rocks, voices that sounded like people they'd lost. They said the air smelled strange, like wet fur and something sweet that made them want to sleep. The ranger who took their report looked tired, older than his years. He'd been friends with Mendoza. He'd been the one to find the bodies of the drug smugglers, arranged in that perfect circle. "Stay away from the canyon," he told the hikers. "Some things are better left buried." But in his desk drawer he kept a loaded gun and a rosary of his own, just in case. Because sometimes at night, when the wind blows just right, people swear. They can hear scratching coming from under the ground, like something with long claws, digging its way out, patient, hungry, waiting, and the tribal elders watch the canyon and pray it stays sealed. Because whatever Carlos Mendoza trapped in, there with his final act of courage isn't dead. It's just waiting. My name is Catherine Murphy, but everyone calls me Kate. Right now I'm driving my snowmobile through the worst March blizzard I've seen in my 3 years working at Denali National Park. The wind is screaming across the empty tundra, throwing snow into my face even through my goggles. I'm on my way to check on a research station that's gone quiet, and I've got a bad feeling about it. The sky above me is amazing, even with the storm. The northern lights are dancing green and purple against the stars, swirling like ghostly ribbons. It's beautiful, but also kind of spooky when you're all alone out here. The sound of my snowmobile engine bounces off the hills around me. Out here, miles from anywhere, that mechanical growl is the only human sound for hours in any direction. I keep checking my compass. It's easy to get lost when everything looks the same, just endless white in every direction. My radio keeps crackling with static. The park director told me there's a solar storm hitting Earth right now, messing with communications. I try calling base again, but all I get is more static and weird echoes. "This is Ranger Murphy, heading to Coldfoot Research Station. Anyone copy?" Nothing but crackle and hiss. Something else is bothering me. I spotted a caribou herd earlier, but they were moving in the wrong direction. These animals have used the same migration paths for hundreds of years, but lately they've been avoiding certain areas completely. The local guides say the animals know something we don't. God, it's cold. The thermometer on my gear says it's 40, but it feels worse, like the cold is alive and trying to find ways inside my clothes. My breath freezes the moment it leaves my mouth, making tiny ice crystals that fall like snow around my face. I stop the snowmobile to check my map again. That's when I hear it, laughter, Not just any laughter, but a high, wild sound carrying across the empty landscape. I spin around, looking for the source, but there's nothing but snow and darkness. "Hello?" I call out, my voice swallowed by the wind. "Is anyone there?" No answer, just another burst of that strange laughter, farther away now. I shake my head. Maybe it's just the wind playing tricks on me. I'm about to start the engine again when I notice something strange in the snow. Wolf tracks. But these aren't normal tracks. They're running in perfect circles, like the animals were chasing their tails or running from something. I've never seen wolves behave like this before. Suddenly the northern lights above me stop. Just stop, mid-dance. 1 second they're flowing across the sky and the next they're frozen, then gone completely. The stars disappear too, covered by clouds or something else, leaving me in total darkness except for my headlamp. The silence that follows is worse than the howling wind. It feels heavy, like something is watching me, waiting. Even my breath sounds too loud. I start the snowmobile again, pushing it faster toward the research station. Something is very wrong out here, and I need to find those researchers. I try not to think about the laughter, or why the wolves were running in circles, or why the lights in the sky just stopped. The research station is just over the next ridge. I just hope I'm not too late. I check the EMT badge pinned to my parka out of habit. Even though I'm a park ranger now, I still carry my old medical kit everywhere. Old habits die hard, I guess. I've got bandages, medicines, and emergency tools that most rangers don't bother with. But after what I've seen in Chicago, I know how fast things can go wrong. I wasn't always alone in Alaska. 3 years ago, I was working as a paramedic in Chicago. Busy streets, constant calls, never enough sleep. Then one night we got a call about a little boy, maybe 6 years old. Car accident. I did everything right, everything they taught me, but I lost him anyway. I can still hear the sound of children laughing on the playground across from where it happened. Weird how your mind connects things that don't belong together. After that, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I'd hear that laughter. It wasn't the kids' fault. They didn't know what was happening just down the street. But that sound, it followed me. My husband, Mike, tried to help. He was the strong one, always pushing me forward when I wanted to give up. "We'll get through this," he'd say, but we didn't get through it together. 2 years ago, he went ice climbing with friends and never came home. Avalanche. They found his body 3 days later. So here I am, as far from Chicago as I could get. Just me and my dog, Yukon, in a tiny ranger outpost at the edge of Denali. Most people think I'm crazy for living so far out, but the silence helps. Or it did, until tonight. I check my satellite. Phone again. No signal. I've got an emergency beacon in my pack, but I'm not ready to use it yet. Out here, you learn to handle things yourself. Help is hours away on a good day. In this storm, maybe days. Last month, I started reading about Inuit stories. Myths about spirits that hunt during the coldest nights. The elders in the nearest village told me about creatures made of ice and darkness that feed on fear. I thought they were just stories to keep kids from wandering off in the dark. Now, I'm not so sure. Winter is the hardest time for me. 20 hours of darkness every day messes with your head. Some mornings I wake up and can't remember the last time I saw the sun. The doctors call it seasonal depression, but it feels more like the darkness is trying to swallow me whole. The research station appears ahead, a small cluster of lights. In the endless black, I feel a rush of relief, then worry. The lights are on, but no one responded to my radio calls. Yukon jumps off the back of the snowmobile as soon as I stop, his white fur almost invisible against the snow. He's a big boy, 120 pounds of Alaskan Malamute, and the best company I could ask for out here. He doesn't bark or growl, which is good, but he doesn't wag his tail either, which isn't. "Let's check it out, buddy," I whispered, grabbing my medical bag and flashlight. As I walk toward the main building, I can't shake the feeling that I'm walking into something I won't be able to walk back out of. But if someone needs help, I have to try. That's the promise I made after that night in Chicago. No more lost lives on my watch. The door to the station is unlocked. I push it open slowly, Yukon pressed against my leg. "Hello?" I call out. "This is Ranger Murphy. Anyone here?" The only answer is the wind, and maybe, just maybe, the faint sound of laughter coming from somewhere deep inside the building. The research station is warm inside, which makes no sense with the door wide open in this weather. I close it behind me and shake the snow from my coat. "Hello? Anyone here?" I call again, my voice bouncing off the walls. The main room looks normal at first. Desks with computers, science equipment, maps on the walls. Then I notice the food. There are plates on the table with half-eaten meals. Steam still rises from cups of coffee. It's like everyone just got up and left in the middle of dinner. "This isn't right," I whisper to Yukon. He sniffs the air, on alert. I move to one of the desks and check the computer. The screen shows lines of weather data, but the bottom half is filled with the same words, typed over and over. So funny, so funny, so funny. A chill runs through me that has nothing to do with the cold outside. I check the radio equipment next. Someone has smashed it with what looks like a hammer. Wires hang out, twisted and cut. The satellite phone lies in pieces on the floor. Why would they break their only way to call for help? I ask Yukon, who just whines in response. I move deeper into the station, checking each room. The lab is a mess. Expensive microscopes thrown to the floor, sample containers broken. In one of the bedrooms I find a journal. The first entries are normal, weather observations, notes about wildlife. Then they change. The handwriting gets messy. Instead of research notes, there are jokes. Bad jokes. Nursery rhymes with dark endings. The last page just has a drawing of a smiling face, the grin stretching off the page. I put the journal down, my hands shaking a little. "Let's check outside," I tell Yukon. Maybe they had to evacuate for some reason. As we head back toward the door, my radio suddenly crackles to life. I jump at the sound. Through the static, I hear laughter, high-pitched and wild, going on and on without stopping for breath. I switch it off, my heart pounding. Just interference, I tell myself. Just the storm. Outside, Yukon starts barking and runs around the back of the station. I follow him, my flashlight beam bouncing across the snow. What I find makes me stop in my tracks. 6 bodies, arranged in a perfect circle in the snow. The researchers. They're frozen solid, covered in frost. But that's not the worst part. Each face is twisted into the same terrible grin, eyes wide open, looking up at the dark sky. They look like they died laughing. I've seen plenty of dead bodies as a paramedic. This is different, wrong. Their positions don't make sense. People don't just lie down in the snow to die, especially not in a perfect circle. I kneel beside the closest body, a woman about my age. I check for a pulse even though I know it's useless. Her skin is like ice, but her eyes, they look alive somehow, still filled with whatever she saw last. My thermometer starts going crazy. The digital. Numbers dropping so low, the screen just shows error, then jumping back to normal. My medical equipment isn't working either. The batteries that were fine minutes ago are dead, and the liquid in my syringes is frozen solid. As I stand up, I notice something else in the snow. Footprints. Bare human footprints, despite the killing cold. They form strange patterns around the bodies. Triangles, squares, and circles overlapping each other. No one could walk barefoot out here for even a minute without getting frostbite. The laughter comes again, closer now. It sounds like it's coming from everywhere. From the trees, from the sky, from inside my own head. Yukon hears it too. He starts howling, but not his normal howl. It sounds almost like he's trying to laugh, the sound rising and falling in the same rhythm as the laughter on the wind. "Yukon, stop!" I shout, but he doesn't seem to hear me. The laughter grows louder. My breath catches in my throat as I realize something terrible. I want to laugh too. Something about that sound is tugging at the corners of my mouth, trying to force a smile I don't feel. I grab Yukon's collar and pull him back toward the station. We need shelter, need to think. As I look back over my shoulder, I swear I see something moving among the trees, tall and thin, watching us with eyes that catch the light from my flashlight and shine it back 100 times brighter. "Come on, buddy," I whisper to Yukon. "Let's get inside, now." Back inside the station, I lock the door and push a heavy desk in front of it. My hands won't stop shaking. Yukon paces around the room, making that strange half-howl, half-laugh sound that raises the hair on my neck. "It's okay, boy," I say, but we both know that's a lie. I try the station's landline phone, but it's dead too. No surprise there. I'm searching for any working radio when the lights flicker and go out, leaving us in darkness except for my flashlight. In the new silence, I hear something scratching at the walls outside, like fingers, too many fingers, dragging across the metal siding of the building. "Who's there?" I call out, trying to sound brave. "This is Park Ranger Murphy. Identify yourself." The answer comes as a laugh, so close it could be right beside me. I spin around, flashlight beam cutting through the darkness, but there's nothing there. Then the temperature drops. Fast. My breath clouds in front of me and frost begins to form on the inside of the windows. The cold is different from outside, deeper somehow, like it's freezing more than just my skin. Yukon growls, staring at the far corner of the room. My flashlight follows his gaze. That's when I see it. Standing in the corner is something. It looks almost human, but too tall, at least 7 feet. Its skin is covered in a layer of frost that cracks when it moves. But its face, that's what makes my heart stop. It has a smile that stretches, far wider than any human mouth should, with teeth made of what looks like jagged icicles. Its hair moves like smoke, made of frozen breath, swirling around its head. And its eyes, they're empty, but somehow full of terrible joy. "What do you want?" I whisper, backing away slowly. The creature tilts its head, that impossible smile growing even wider. When it speaks, its voice sounds like ice cracking on a frozen lake. "Laughter," it says, "just a little laughter to warm these cold bones." It takes a step toward me, and suddenly my mind fills with images. The little boy from Chicago, the one I couldn't save. But in these visions, he's laughing at me, pointing at my shaking hands, mocking my efforts to save him. I see Mike, too, hanging from the cliff face, laughing as the snow comes down to bury him. All my failures, all my fears, twisted into something funny. I feel a giggle rising in my throat. I clamp my hand over my mouth to hold it in. "Who are you?" I manage to ask. "What are you?" "The Inuit call me many names," it says, ice crystals falling from its mouth as it speaks. "The Lonely One, the Cold Joker, the Laughing Death. I've been here longer than your kind has walked these lands." It glides closer. The air around it is so cold, it burns. "I feed on joy," it continues, "on the endorphins that flood your brain. When you laugh, so sweet, so warm in this cold place. Your researchers, they laugh for days before the end. Such a feast." I back away until I hit the wall. Yukon is beside me, but he's not protecting me anymore. He's making that laughing sound again, his eyes wide and strange. "Stop it," I say. "Leave him alone." The creature laughs, and the sound bounces around the room, growing louder and louder until it seems to come from everywhere. Yukon's howl laugh gets louder too. "Your dog has a good sense of humor," the thing says. "Most animals run. He wants to join the fun." It reaches out one long, frost-covered hand toward me. Where its fingertips pass, the air freezes into tiny ice crystals that hang suspended. "I've been so hungry," it whispers. "The researchers were good, but you carry so much grief. It will taste even sweeter when it turns to laughter." Suddenly, I see mirages forming in the air around us, a rescue helicopter hovering outside. The window, a doorway leading to a warm room, other rangers coming to help. But they flicker and vanish when I look directly at them. "No one is coming," the creature says, reading my thoughts. "No one ever comes. I've fed here for decades. Lonely travelers, lost hikers, curious scientists. They all laugh in the end." I feel it then, an unbearable tickling sensation in my chest, rising up to my throat. My lips twitch. A small laugh escapes before I can stop it. The creature's eyes light up. "Yes," it hisses. "That's it. Let go. Isn't it all so ridiculous? Life, death, your tiny struggles, just a joke in the end." Another laugh bursts out of me, this one louder, and another. I can't stop it. Yukon is practically convulsing now, that canine laughter coming in non-stop waves. Through tears of unwanted laughter, I see the creature growing stronger, more solid. The frost on its skin glistens, and its smile stretches even wider. I feel a coldness spreading through my veins, as if my blood is starting to freeze while I'm still alive. The pain is excruciating, but somehow, horribly, I find it funny. As I slide down the wall, clutching my sides and laughing uncontrollably, one clear thought cuts through the madness. I'm going to die laughing, just like the others, unless I can find a way to fight back. Through my uncontrollable laughter, a memory surfaces, something one of the village elders told me. The cold ones feed on false joy. True sorrow burns them like fire. The creature moves closer, drinking. In my laughter, like it's the most delicious thing it's ever tasted. My chest hurts. I can't breathe. Each laugh forces more air out, and I can't seem to breathe in. I'm going to laugh myself to death. My medical training kicks in. Without oxygen, I'll pass out in minutes. I need to stop laughing, need to breathe. My medical bag is just a few feet away. Inside is a small surgical kit. A desperate idea forms. In my mind, I force myself to crawl toward the bag, still laughing so hard tears freeze on my cheeks. The creature watches, amused by my struggle. "Where are you going, little ranger?" it asks, ice crystals forming in the air as it speaks. The show is just beginning. My fingers close around the bag. I pull out the surgical kit with shaking hands and find what I'm looking for. A small scalpel and a hollow tube meant for emergency. Airways. What I'm about to do is dangerous, maybe fatal, but I'm dead anyway if I don't try. I put the tube against my throat, just below my voice box. This will bypass my laughing reflex, a tracheotomy, creating a new way to breathe when the normal one is blocked. The creature realizes what I'm doing and lunges forward. "No!" I push the scalpel in before it can reach me. The pain is sharp and immediate. With training I don't deserve to have, I insert the tube and take a ragged breath through it. The air burns going in, but it works. I'm breathing, even as my mouth continues to laugh. The creature hisses, its smile faltering for the first time. "Clever girl, but you can't fight me forever." It waves a hand, and suddenly the walls of the station melt away. We're outside, in a maze made of ice. The walls are perfectly clear, and inside each one I can see the frozen faces of its victims, all laughing their final laughs. "Find your way out," it taunts. "If you can." I stagger to my feet. The tube in my throat hurts with each breath, but it's keeping me alive. Yukon is still convulsing with laughter beside me. I need to save him too. The cold is worse than anything I've ever felt. My fingers are turning blue. Hypothermia is setting in fast. I won't last long out here. I stumble forward, one hand on the ice wall for support. The faces watch me pass. Hikers, hunters, other rangers I recognize. How many people has this thing killed? Behind me, the creature glides through the maze, never touching the ground. "Your dog won't last much longer," it calls. "His heart isn't made for such laughter." I look back. Yukon is on his side now, his laughing howls growing weaker. He's dying. Something breaks inside me. Not fear, Not panic, but pure grief. The grief I've been running from since Chicago, since Mike died. The grief I came to Alaska to escape. I stop running. I turn to face the creature. You feed on laughter, I say through the tube in my throat, my voice a raspy whisper. What happens when there is no laughter left? I think about the little boy in Chicago, about how his hand felt in mine as his pulse faded. I think about Mike, about how we'll never grow old together. I let myself feel the full weight of that loss. Tears stream down my face, freezing before they hit the ground. But I'm not laughing anymore. The creature's smile falters. It takes a step back. Stop that, it hisses. It's all a joke. Life is a joke. Laugh. It sends another wave of hysteria at me. I feel it push against my mind, trying to find something, anything to twist into humor. But there's nothing left to twist, only pure, raw grief. No, I say simply. I walk toward it now. Each step is agony in the cold, but I keep going. The creature retreats, its icy form seeming less solid. You're supposed to run, it shrieks. They always run. I shake my head. I'm done running. I reach out to touch it, and to my surprise, my hand passes through its chest like it's made of snow. It screams, a sound like breaking ice, and the maze around us begins to crack. What are you doing? It howls. Accepting what I couldn't change, I say. The boy in Chicago, Mike on that mountain. I couldn't save them. And it hurts. It will always hurt. The creature writhes as if my words are physically wounding it. Its smile cracks down the middle, icicle teeth falling to shatter on the ground. Stop! It begs. But I don't stop. I walk forward, through its disintegrating form, thinking of every sad moment, every loss, every pain I've tried to run from. They flow through me like a river, washing away the creature's hold. The ice maze shatters. We're back at the research station. The creature is barely visible now, just a faint outline against the dark. We are not a joke, I tell it. Our pain is not funny, and you have no power here anymore. With a final shriek, it dissolves into a shower of snowflakes that melt before they hit the ground. I collapse, exhaustion hitting me all at once. I crawl to where Yukon lies motionless on the floor. Yukon, I whisper, placing a hand on his chest. No movement, no breath. His heart has given out from the strain. No, I sob, pulling his heavy body into my lap. Please, no. The grief is overwhelming, but this time I don't run from it. I hold him and cry until my tears run dry. Hours later, when search and rescue finally arrives, the storm has cleared and they were worried when I didn't check in. They find me still holding him, the tube in my throat, the only thing that kept me alive. They ask what happened. I tell them about the researchers, show them the bodies outside. But I don't tell them about the creature. Some truths are too strange to share. 6 months later, I'm still a ranger at Denali. I have a new dog now, a husky puppy I name Mike. I still carry my medical kit. I still check on remote stations when the weather turns bad. But I never go alone. And when the northern lights dance, and I hear something like laughter on the wind, I don't run from the sadness that rises in my chest. I let it come, because I know now true grief is stronger than false joy. And somewhere in the endless dark of an Alaskan winter, the thing that feeds on laughter is waiting for someone who still thinks pain is something to run from. It's waiting for someone who hasn't learned what I had to learn the hard way, that some ghosts can only hurt you if you refuse to face them. And in the coldest, darkest nights, when the wind howls across the tundra, I swear I can still hear it, that high, wild laughter, searching for its next victim.